You're watching the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Now it's time for the Brent Austen Show.
Jacksonville, the community, Duval.
Well, that's Liam Coen yesterday. Obviously, if you want to grab onto something from that news conference, and if you weren't entrenched in everything that was said, that's the thing that's being grabbed onto, the, I guess, awkward Duval. He had already done one earlier in the day, folks. I really feel like the interesting part of that Duval was it was like he was trying to put a different twist on it, then kind of got caught. Maybe it was it just didn't work. But I don't think he was trying to do the Duval like everybody else does in the middle of everything else going on. So maybe a failed attempt at a little fun and sing-songy version of it for Liam Coen. And it's just so funny to see that's how everybody now quantifies from the outside looking in. I'm talking the national folks, how this press conference went. Like I saw, I think Awful Announcing and some other folks, probably Barstool, whatever, say, oh boy, this was not winning the press conference. I'm like, really? Like, based off that one moment is not winning the press conference? Is that how we judged the Sirianni one? Is that how we judged maybe Adam Gase? Is that how we judged Dan Campbell based off one moment? Or was it the entirety of the presser? And I guess maybe shame on us for doing that from the outside looking in, much like everybody else is. But here in Jacksonville, I don't think, like, I didn't leave that room thinking, oh, he lost a news conference. I don't think people in Jacksonville feel like he lost a news conference. I think it was a great day for Liam Coen, even with the maybe awkward Duval. And again, I thought he won it earlier during our show yesterday when he said, when he had the staff meeting. It was a great move by him. Had the staff meeting, they did the Duval. And by the way, he did other Duvals even with us on TV after, and he gets it. So I think... I think this was way bigger win than being perceived by social media, where everybody just grabs onto something. They're really making much more about it than probably it needs to be. So that's my piece on that. He's going to have to live with that one now. That will be a little bit part of the opener. And I guess we move on. Brent Martineau, down here in Daytona, you can see the track behind me. It's a very cloudy day. And I'm not here for the race. Hey, it's, you know what time of year it is. It's softball, baseball season. And so we got a couple ball games today, and they got moved up. I thought I was okay, 3 and 5 o'clock. They got moved up to 1. So I was like, oh, man, what am I going to do? So here I am in a parking lot at the Hilton. With Daytona International Speedway right behind us. Inappropriate so, right? Rolex 24 just in the books, and the Daytona 500 on the horizon. And that comes after the Super Bowl. And is Liam Coen the guy to get the Jags to the Super Bowl? Is he going to be the guy? And I think that's what we all want to know. I think that's what Shad Khan thinks and hopes. And you just never know. I don't know if this is the right hire. I don't know how it's going to work out. You rally around hires. You think all good things. Yesterday was a really good day in that building in the city of Jacksonville for this franchise. That doesn't mean there are great days to come in Jacksonville. But I think overall, Jason Hamby, as we bring into the mix, and we'll be joined by Austen Lane a little bit later once he gets his workout in and fight camp down in South Florida. I think if you listen to the words of what he said, I think he hit on a lot of things that I wanted him to hit on. And let's not make this about me in my letter to Liam, but there's a reason why I wrote that. There's a reason why we've been talking about things for the last couple of weeks, couple of months, couple of years that we see that hasn't been great in Jacksonville or could be fixed in Jacksonville to make more sustained winning, not just a blip here or a blip there. And I really took away from this that, one, he's ready for this moment, and you planning for it for a long time, but he was ready for the moment. I thought he nailed a lot of the messaging in this news conference and in the words and in the interviews that he's done with a lot of people yesterday. And I also thought that he had a pretty good feel for this place, even though he's really only been around it about 5 days and maybe a couple of weeks if you give him the first interview. And I've been around it for 17 years trying to figure out the issues and problems and where can the Jags get better. And I thought he hit on a lot of things in his couple of weeks just being around this thing. So I thought it was pretty astute by him to be able to figure this place out, the messaging that he had. that. Now, will he be able to consistently deliver on some of the things that he mentioned is going to be the question. We're going to see football. We're going to see a scoreboard. We're going to see players. We're going to see a coaching staff. We're going to see a GM. I'm just going to continue to tell you there's more to it behind the scenes if you want to be a sustained winner, if you want to build the right kind of building that places like Baltimore and now Philadelphia and Kansas City and before it was the Patriots have been able to build in this football league. There's more to it. Can he deliver on some of those things? I thought he got off to a great start yesterday, Hamby. I don't know what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I thought so too. The whole thing is after a press conference is how much do you really put into it? But for how much you can put into it, I think he nailed kind of every part of it. I did think he seemed ready. I'm curious to see what you thought. I thought at the very beginning of it, at least for his opening remarks, it seemed like he was a little bit nervous in a sense to kind of get things rolling there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, why wouldn't you be, by the way? Like, I think that's just a natural part of it. And listen, this goes to Shad Khan, too. Like, Shad doesn't love talking in front of a microphone. Like, we know that. Like, he doesn't love that setting. I think that's pretty crystal clear, especially when talking about the football side of things. This is not an easy thing to do. And I think for even Liam Coen, think about this for Liam Coen. I mean, he grew up in Rhode Island. I mean, yeah, we went out there with a local TV station once in a while and got him. He grew up playing at UMass in college. I can tell you this, Boston and Providence markets don't cover UMass on a daily basis. He's not in front of a microphone the whole time. And then he's an assistant coach all the way. Well, you don't really talk in front of a microphone. And then, at least on a regular basis, really the only time he's probably done that was last year as the OC in Tampa, maybe in the Rams a couple years ago because he was labeled the OC, even though McVey was the guy. So you don't have a lot of practice at this stuff. I thought he was tremendous from that standpoint, and this is the moment of his life as a 39-year-old guy, and you knew there were going to be some uncomfortable things going into that. He's addressing everybody for the first time. You'll hear me later in a sit-down and be like, hey, what did you want to accomplish, and how did you think you did? Yeah. Because I think that's a big moment for a guy. Like, this is not Doug Peterson who had done this before. You know, this is a guy doing it for the first time, and so, yeah, I think he probably was a bit nervous, and maybe rightfully so.
Yeah. Other than that, I thought the things that you want him to, that on my checklist personally, were to address individual players and talk about, Trevor. I'll group Etienne and Bigsby together because he talked about the run game specifically, and then guys like BTJ. So he checked that one off. He checked off the stuff with the alignment, which was huge. And that's when you think that, okay, this guy understands. There's a difference, and I think that even a casual fan can tell whether a guy talks like a guy who's fully up in the bubble of just offense, mastermind, play calling, all of that, and wrapped up in there, and a guy who's able to, yes, be that, but also extend to be a guy who does know situation. When we had Joe Trainer on, he talked about emotional awareness. I felt like I got a pretty good glimpse of that yesterday based off of fielding all of those questions and how he kind of responded to this is about team, this is about organization, this is about relationships, all of these different things.
Yeah, I think you're right. Listen, you mentioned Joe Trainer, and he said something that really stood out. What our favorite part of that interview with Joe Trainer, former Rhode Island coach, who was talking about him, well, he talked about emotional IQ, and that was reading people in a room, relationships, all these things. That was a cool part of it. But he also said, listen, what he was trying to say is people look at these offensive guys that are really a savant. He mentioned that word in the quote. And, and I think what he was trying to say is, like, you kind of look at those guys, you're like, well, they're a little bit nerdy. Right? Like, that's all they do. They're just like, oh, I'm stuck in a room and doing that. And therefore, there's a little disconnect between being able to relate to people and players and relationships and communicate. And maybe when you have a next level way of thinking in that realm, which is the book on Liam Coen, and maybe you can't relay that. Well, he said, no, he's very good at that. Not everybody is good at that, but he's very good at that. And so I think that's what you're talking about. And I think we saw a little bit of that. I mean, I thought he was pretty eloquent talking about what he wanted. Listen, this is not the Hammer Doug. I just continue to bring up when I asked him about his identity last year, it took 3 or 4 minutes to get to the identity. One of my favorite parts of this thing was the opening part of this presser where he rolled off, I want to play fast, we want to play physical, we want to do this, we want to do this. It was like boom, 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 boom. It's like, that's the way it should be. Now, listen, you've got to still evolve that. You've got to work that. There'll be signs on the building, all these different things, but you want to know what you are all about. We want to know what you are all about. And I think we never fully got that with Doug. We got a lot of good things with Doug. I want to make sure we say that because we did. This isn't Hammer Doug session, but I do think it was important for him to come out with who are the Jags, what's the identity, all the things, man, alignment. He hit like everything. It was really pretty interesting sitting there because I highlighted in my little letter like 5 words: alignment, messaging, transparency. The heck else did I say? Identity and something else. I think I have 5 of them, and it was like, I swear for a second there, it's like he read the letter because I was just like, yes, tell us that. Now you got to do it, by the way. You got to do it too. But I just thought it was pretty interesting that he tackled those things. And I think that, listen, this isn't rocket science. I think these are things that you have to do in a leadership standpoint when you're in a billion-dollar industry and the microscope is just right on you all the time. You have to have these tenets that you believe in, that you stick to. That's who you are. Like, you have got to be able to do that. And I think Cohen did that. Hey, you have one of the things about today's show is, listen, we're going to talk a lot about it. We're going to have our sit down at 11 o'clock, by the way, with Liam. So you haven't heard that yet. We've actually kind of saved that. We did a little piece last night on CBS 47 and Fox 30, but we really haven't put that whole thing out yet because there's so much content coming out. And there was so much from the news conference and everything else. But we'll have that at 11 o'clock. But in between and even after, there's so much from this news conference. We're going to do winners and losers. What was your favorite part of this news conference? Like, what was your favorite soundbite, if you will? I think there's a lot to pick from. But I want to get to some of it. And Hamby, I don't know the best way to do this. You've got it in front of you, but I know
got all of them.
The one thing I'd love. Okay, and you might have to kind of be point guard here and get us into a topic or something, just because you know where they are on the computer. But the one thing I'd like to do is just start off with that little bit off the top where I think he did give the identity, what he wants to be. Like, this was the mission statement of a Liam Coen football team here in Jacksonville. And I thought it was pretty quick, but also pretty profound in the first couple of minutes of addressing Jacksonville.
It takes complementary football at all 3 phases to be great. Offense, defense, and special teams. How do we want to play the game? And that's fast. Fundamentally sound, attacking, situational masters, and tough, both mentally and physically. You see players in the room right here, guys that I've had conversations with already. It will always be about you. Always. It is players over plays. How do we make this as much about the players and making this about bringing out the best in you? That's what this is about. Jacksonville, the community, Duval. How do we do this together? This has to be collaborative. I want it to be as collaborative as possible for us to go to the next level, take the next step, and for us to have found a home for the first time in a long time that we can maybe plant some roots and truly be in a community and a family that we love and trust.
Well, there you go. I mean, listen, see what I mean? See what he hit? Like, he didn't get to hit alignment necessarily there, but he was talking about players. You're going to hear players, not plays, all the time. Been saying that for a couple of weeks about Liam Coen. And I think beyond that is you're going to, I mean, you just got a sense of what he wants to do, right? He mentioned fast. He mentioned explosive. He mentioned tough. And tough is one of those big things now. And I hate this topic in football because it's a violent game and everybody is tough. But we all know the Jags could be a little more tough. They don't look like the Eagles. They don't look like the Bucs. They don't look like some of these teams. They could be a little bit better in that category, and I think it's important for them to get there, and I think they know that. And, of course, mentally tough, too. This team has not rebounded very well, and you've got to be able to fix it. Like, you have to be able to do better here in Jacksonville, Hamby, on those fronts, and it sounds like he's going to be able to do that. Yeah,
it does, and just the fact that, like you said, it was one after another is exactly what you would have wanted to hear. It was also the point where he talks about the collaborative effort and the players, and I get that players not plays is almost now a cliche, but to me, one of the things that stuck out was like he knows his role, and that might sound like a simple thing, but a lot of head coaches will probably come in and think that they're the guy, they're the big man on campus. Ego can kind of get in the way, and from what he said right there, but also what he said later about, I think he said like reaching and teaching. That's what coaching is, and connection with players and kind of putting them on the pedestal is kind of, to me, it seems like he wants to be in as little almost limelight as possible. And that's just not always the case. I mean, this is that's a niche topic here, but it showed me that I think he was perfectly fine with letting everybody else kind of take it and propelling the players as far as they can go while taking as little credit as possible.
Hey, Hamby, you're doing a great job, and I want to get to more of this sound. Here's the problem. I know I already did this. I knew I was going to do this. Once I stop the car or the car shuts off, I can't hear anymore, so I got to fix that. But hey, it's a good time to take a break anyway, so I'll go do that. I'll get that settled up so we won't have that the rest of the show. But here's the deal. Let's take a quick time out, because when we come back, I want to go boom, 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 right down the list of some of the big things that he was talking about. Okay? And I from a chat standpoint, what's the favorite part of this? What was the favorite part of yesterday in terms of maybe a soundbite? Like, what did he say? Because there was one illustration that was really strong and really good. I think a lot of people are going to go here with it, but I don't know, because there's a lot to pick from. When I was doing this sound and looking into today and talking to Hamby and texting him last night, I'm like, I sent him like a million things, because I was like, oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. And like, he's mentioned Trevor Lawrence so much that it almost felt awkward. Trevor was like 20 feet to my right. It's like, must be weird that the guy's talking about you so much like this. But it is all about Trevor. But he also didn't mention some names. And did that resonate with people at all? What he mentioned versus what he didn't mention. Were there some winners and losers on this roster here in Jacksonville yesterday with this opening news conference? Should we read that much into it? Let's talk about it when we come back. Take a break. I'm down in Daytona. We're everywhere. Austin will join us in a little bit. He's down in South Florida. Get ready for his big fight in the UFC here in about a month or so. And then Hamby back in the studio pushing all the buttons. The new coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars is Liam Coen. Shad Khan has his guy. Did he get it right this time? We'll be back on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. And don't forget our sit-down with Liam Coen coming up in about 40 minutes.
When it comes to trucks, I know exactly what I want. And at Bozard Ford, they make it easy to get exactly that. Let's go make this truck a little more my style. With Bozard Built, I can create my perfect truck right here. Lift kit? Check. Premium wheels? You bet. Advanced lighting package? Oh yeah. The Bozard team works their magic. From bumper to tailgate, I'm making this truck mine. It's everything that I wanted and more. From the field to the gym to weekend adventures. This truck's built for my journey. Bozard Built. Customized for your lifestyle, built to exceed your expectations. Check out the inventory and available options at bozardbuilt.com. Unleash your dream ride. Customized, covered, and Bozard approved.
When it's time to get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models, or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway, or shop online at nimnickbuickgmc.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness. And most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick. GMC. We are professional grade.
There's a saying in sports, you can't win them all, but you can win a lot with good folks on your team. Like that one painter, First Coast. It's tough to beat the sun in Florida, so your home fades. It's tough to beat that HOA when they come calling. Beat the sun, beat the HOA with that one painter, First Coast. And it's a good time to do it. Less rain to work around, and painting in mild temperatures is perfect. After all, the paint bonds to the surface so much better. Give that one painter First Coast a call at 904-417-3557 or look them up at first-coast.thatonepainter.com. Fast estimate, guidance on color and HOA requirements, and the highest quality job you'll find anywhere. Be a big winner in your neighborhood with that one painter First Coast on your team.
2024 provided plenty of memorable moments for the Jacksonville Armada on the pitch, including another conference championship game appearance for Tommy Krasanovich's under-23 men's team.
They sit in the dying moments.
Debuting this year for the first time, the girls in blue, as the Armada fielded a women's under-23 side in the WPSL and made its presence known with some highlight moments.
Potential goal of the season.
Then attention turned to the future, with MLS Next teams representing the Armada badge in 3 age divisions this fall, including an under-19 squad ranking among the best in the state. Those teams are a big focus on Fleet and Footy, covering the big soccer stories each week on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
I'll put one in the back of the net for you.
Join us for player profiles, fun interviews, and the very latest on the Fleet and all things footy. That's every Thursday at 2 p.m.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Aubrey Pleasant is another candidate for the defensive coordinator job for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that included Patrick Graham. There's some steam there, and Jones yesterday we talked about. So the Jags have a few candidates up for their defensive coordinator position. And I think people, at least from what I see, they like the style of these guys, their aggressive play. But we'll see what they land on, and then we can break down kind of the whole pedigree and resume and everything else that comes along with it. But it's obviously a huge thing, right? If you think about what's next, like yesterday was a great day, all that stuff. But if you think about what's next for the Jacksonville Jaguars and really what's first for Liam Coen, I think the defensive coordinator might even be bigger than the GM right now. Like, it's obviously in the long run, the GM's going to be huge, but the defensive coordinator and getting that guy, you can do that probably faster, and it's probably more important. I mean, they have to get that right. He has to get that right. He's an offensive guy. He's going to oversee this whole thing, but he really wants that guy to own that defense, is my guess, like most offensive guys do. So defensive coordinator and GM, Heath Farwell's back on board. He was pretty transparent about all of that, and that's great news, and that's an easy thing, right, for Heath Farwell. Why not? I thought we might have a chance at maybe Darren Rizzi or something and get a couple of Rhode Island guys on that staff. But Heath Farwell, perfect. I mean, they were really good on special teams. Why change? Like, I was really interested in that because I don't think they're, like, super close or anything like that, but I think sometimes in these positions, Hamby, you hire guys that are your buddies or whatever else, and you owe it to them, and this and that, which you kind of get. But I think also that's where the NFL sometimes goes wrong. You don't necessarily just get the best guys for the position. There was no reason to not go Heath Farwell here, right? So it's like, hey, yeah, I mean, my buddy or this guy I worked with, or you make promise, hey, if I'm a coach someday, I'm going to bring this guy in. I love the fact that he didn't do that. Like, he's got a guy right here with this special teams unit, 2 of them going to the Pro Bowl. He's had Pro Bowlers like all 3 years he was in Jacksonville. This guy knows what he's doing. Why change it up? So I already love what he did there to not say, hey, I got to go bring the guy and promote the guy. I'm going to go with the guy that I know already is good, and he's been good here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's that. But it's also, I take it as trying to regain any semblance of continuity, right? We talked a lot yesterday about what if we get obviously Liam Coen's a young first-time head coach. What if we get a guy who's young and never been a defensive coordinator before? Well, at least, I mean, Heath Farwell is not working with anybody else other than those 3, 4, 5 players every single day. But you still get that continuity because he's been there. He's been there and he's had proven success, right? So you try to have at least some bit of resemblance year in, year out, and I think that couldn't be understated as far as, look, you got to make the right choice at about 50 different places if you're Liam Coen over the next weeks and months. Well, this is just another one where you check off as a success.
Yeah, and we'll see how the staff shakes out, and we'll see if it's good. But again, piecing that together is important. All right, Brent Martineau down here in Daytona. Austen Lane will join us in a little bit. Brent Austen Show on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network, and Jason Hamby, of course, pushing all the buttons. And he's got a lot of sound, actually, that we're going to push, including our one-on-one sit-down with Liam Coen coming up at 11 o'clock. We're going to do that at the top of the hour. And Hamby, I'm going to have you take us everywhere in a minute, but I'm going to go first because I want to give you my favorite part of this yesterday. I think there are a lot of things that stood out to me, and there were two really close ones, but I'm going to go with the last soundbite of this news conference. So it's probably the last one you pulled, and it has to do with the trenches in the offensive line and the defensive line. And so I think you'll know which one I'm talking about, but I do think he painted a picture there that was really cool in terms of when you break the huddle. So I'll let him illustrate it, but I think that was my favorite one because I think we all know the Jags have some players in those spots, but they haven't been good enough in those spots. And what he does to those groups, the offensive line, how they coach them, how they scheme it up, how they try to improve it from a personnel standpoint. Defensively, he knows he's got dudes on the outside. What does he do on the interior? Is he satisfied with that? Does he move on with that? Do they address that in the draft? Like, these are all things that are in play over the next few months as they build this football team. But listen to the mentality of what he wants to do, and this is why they went 32nd to 4th in rushing in Tampa this past season.
I think we would all, agree that it needs to improve, right? I think that when you look at, first and foremost, the offensive side of the ball, you want that unit and that group. It's the first thing when you break the huddle that the defense sees. I want that to mean something. We want that to mean something, and it will. And that's a mentality, that's personnel, that's scheme, that's technique, that's fundamentals, that's attitude. That's something that we need to make sure we instill. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think we all know that we've got some talented dudes there. We've got some guys that can really go. How do we continue to ensure the inside? But we got multiple guys up front that can do some good things. We've got to put them in a position to be successful. That's our job. The guys are there. We can continue to add in that room, right? Add multiple different positions as well. But that's where it starts, as you mentioned. To go in playoff games and to go do it, you've got to be able to run the football and stop the run first and foremost.
Well, there's so much there, right? I mean, let's just take you to the backside of that because I love the picture being painted. But the backside of that was, okay, if you're going to do it in the playoffs, we know this. The Jags aren't ready right now. The way they performed running the football and stopping the run, they're not good enough. That's why they probably didn't make the playoffs a year ago because of what happened in Tennessee. They weren't good enough in these close games to close them out or get leads or whatever it was. And that's why they went 4-13. It's a huge part of it, even though, again, they do have some personnel. He even said it. We got guys. We just got to make them better. He said he put it on him. We got to coach him up, right? Like, we got to do a better job. We have it's almost like he said, we've got talent. We know we've got guys that are under contract. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch, Hamby, what he does with that group, because right now, in my opinion, and I'll go back and say I don't know why they let one Shad's mistake. Trent Baalke should not have done that Walker Little move. Like, that would have been an area you could potentially look at, and maybe you do sign him, but maybe you don't. But they have him under contract. They have Ezra Cleveland under contract. They have Mitch Morse under contract for one more year. I think the maneuverability here for them is probably in Sheriff, where they can get a little younger and find a new guy, even though Sheriff, I thought, played well last year. So it's not a knock on him. But I think if you look at the one spot contractually they can move and make something happen and add would be that right guard spot. Well, is that enough? Like, in my mind, I'm not sure that's enough. And then Anton Harrison on the right. So I do think how you coach him, the mentality of it, the culture of it, the scheme of it, all those things matter, because you're probably going to be using a good amount of those guys that are already here. And maybe you do find another player or two. I don't know. But it's more like, how do you use the guys you have and make them better? He was able to do that. Right. In Tampa. I mean, he got them. That was a similar group, as far as I understand it, 32nd to 4th. So it's not like he remade the whole thing. And people had Tristan Wirfs before he had Tristan Wirfs, and they still couldn't run the football in Tampa. So I think there's something to be said about that, of what he has been able to do and what he might be able to do along with his staff here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's the thing that gives you a lot of hope that it can get a lot better, because as we talked about yesterday, there's not a whole lot of maneuverability with the roster. For the large majority of it, whatever roster you had last year is pretty much going to be the roster that you have this year. That goes for the offensive line, but it also goes pretty much for the large majority of the team. Right, so we talked about how much of this can come down to scheme, and you talked about what he did in Tampa Bay, right, and how he pretty much just adapted to his players. The same guys that were not having success in 23, he comes in 24 and says, look, all right, well, we're just going to change things up. We're going to become a counter team, and it worked. And he used those guys' skill sets to their own advantage, and they went from, I mean, that's part of the reason, like with Etienne, I know, again, some people are out on him, but from what he's shown, what Tank Bigsby has shown, there's zero excuse for the Jags to have rushed the way that they did last year. At the same time, this is the identity of the Jags in franchise history. We haven't been excellent at it, but for the most part, the identity of the Jaguars over 30 years has been running the football and playing good defense. Running the football and playing good defense. So at the same time as everybody wants to see Trevor be able to air raid it at times, push the ball down the field, that's the not being able to run the football and not being tough on defense is probably the part that we've missed, because passing, we've never had it really, but that's the part that we've missed. To hear Liam Coen talk about, how he believes that the guys were there. They just got to be coached better. That's the part that gives you hope. I'll put one more thing out on the defensive side, because he really said there, we have the guys we're just going to add to the room. That's where you think draft, right? That he's going to go add to the interior. If I'm reading into it, that's what I think. He's going to add immediately, and immediately sees that as one of the biggest positions of need, interior defensive line, because he mentioned he mentioned Josh Hines-Allen, obviously by name, because he was talking about him earlier with Kentucky and how he talks with him during the practice inter-squad kind of stuff last year. He didn't mention Trayvon by name, but you can imply that's exactly who he meant. He said, we got 2 or 3 guys right there, but he knows that interior is lacked. And again, like I said yesterday, he just watched Vita Vea for a full year. He knows how impactful that position can be. That's where I think he'll go.
Well, before that, he watched Aaron Donald and with the Rams, too. Exactly. And so he knows that position. He mentioned 2 or 3, and when he said 2 or 3, I think he was talking about Eric Armstead. Like, I think, still says, hey, Armstead can go a little bit, too. Like, we can work with that, I don't think he's down on Armstead, but I think you're right. I think this is a guy that's not going to, tell everybody everything, but just the way he was talking, when he mentioned in every interview, we got a couple guys that can go. And he's talking about Josh Allen, Hines Allen, and Trayvon Walker. He did not mention much about the interior. What does that mean for Devon Hamilton? What does that mean for the future of Mason Smith? He's part of it, but is he enough of it? What about Armstead moving in? Can he do that? Will he do that? Like, all these things. So we'll see. And a lot of the DC will have a lot to say about that. But one other thing here. Talking about the run game, he likes Travis Etienne more than maybe you do.
Yeah.
Not you, Hamby. You meaning the fan, because the fans are down on Etienne.
Yeah.
Like, I've been a big believer in Etienne, by the way. And it sounds like he mentioned, if again, we're going to go winners and losers here. And if you want a winner from yesterday's news conference, to me, it was Etienne.
Right.
Like, he was one of them. Because he mentioned those two backs all the time, Bigsby, Etienne, Bigsby, Etienne. He didn't say them by name, but he said, we got two backs. We got two backs. We got two backs. Like, he likes those guys. And I think he thinks, like, he did his homework on this team. You do that when you're going for a job. He likes those guys. I think it was a big win yesterday for Travis Etienne. Who will be the number one back? I don't know. How do they use these backs? I don't know. But he likes both of these guys, and I think that's pretty clear. And listen, they're under contract. They extended him with his 5th year, and so they've got him. They obviously have Bigsby on the rookie deal, so they're not like super invested in terms of dollars at that position. And he sounds like he likes those guys. It's more about getting the right scheme for them, getting their best skill set put to work, and then also getting that offensive line to do its thing. I thought Etienne was one of the big winners, and as we go through some of this stuff, we'll talk about some of the big winners. The interior lineman, defensively, might have been a little bit of a loser in this. Even a young guy like Mason Smith, he might really have to prove himself. Keep in mind, a 2nd-round draft pick, but that's now on the watch of Trent Baalke, not this new GM, not this new regime. So you start to wonder how some of those moves will be looked at and viewed, maybe not even just for this year, but down the road and years to come, because we know guys like to get their own guys in eventually on a roster. All right, that was my favorite. Do you have a favorite, Hamby, of what was said? And if that was it, pick another one.
All right, I got you. I'm going to just go ahead and play it and let it speak for itself.
I've mentioned this to the guys. This isn't a 4-win team. Yes, that is the record, but this is not a 4-win team. Okay? How do we go from winning games to not losing them? I think that's something we've got to address. And that is got to be in our veins, in our DNA, the culture of winning. I've learned it from the Los Angeles Rams and from a ton of other great organizations on how to go win football games. And so I think that's something that we have to start as a team, as a group, and show how we're going to go do it.
All right, so I'm like, first of all, yeah, recognizing that this is not a 4-win team, that's a win number one. But it sounds so elementary, and to some that, I don't know, maybe may not be as nuanced, it sounds like we got to figure out to win football games instead of lose them. You'd be like, no dip. If you watch the Jags, you know exactly what he's talking about, okay? If you watch any team that's struggled in the past, you know exactly what he's talking about. The Jags at times only feel like they play not to lose, and then they end up losing. How many one-score games did we just lose last year where it seems like we have a 4-point lead, there's 4 minutes to go, and you as a fan are like, it's only a matter of time before we punt, they go down the field and win the game. We don't play to win it. We don't make the game-winning plays. How many times on your hand can you think of a game-sealing, a game-winning conversion, a game-winning play, a game-winning pick? It didn't happen. And it didn't happen at the end of 23 either when we went on that skid. A game-winning drive. We talk about death march and all the time in college football. Obviously, as a Georgia guy, like we kind of are infamous for it. When there's 6 minutes left to go in the game, you're up by 4 points. The other team's got all 3 timeouts, and you kill the game with 6 minutes to go because you march it all the way down there. You chew the clock. You convert on 3rd down. You're not obvious with your play calling, even though you're up. It's not run on first up the middle for 2, run up the middle on second for 2, and then we're in 3rd and 6, and we're trying to get an easy completion to also keep the clock running but maybe have a chance at the sticks. That's not the vibe that you get from Liam Coen there. He's got specific, obviously he didn't relay those there, but it sounds like in his head he knows specifically already exactly game plan-wise of how we're going to go about trying to go out and win the game, keep the ball. And that also means to me, what's the new wave, or not necessarily new wave, but what do we see Dan Campbell do? What do we see Harbaugh do? They keep the ball in their offense's hands because they want to go win it. They don't want to give the other team even an opportunity to go win the game and get the ball back. Cohen, I don't know exactly how aggressive he was because obviously Bowles is over him and all that, but this sounds like an aggressive play caller right here.
Well, it does, but see, I think there's even more nuance involved in this soundbite. And we even had some folks out there like, did he mess that up? Like, what do you mean we don't win games not losing them? We got to stop winning games and not losing them. Think about that. Like all the things you just said, but really stick on the not losing them. And I'll tell you this, I think Doug tried this too. I think Doug, because he knows how to win games. Like I do think Doug knows how to win in the NFL, and he wanted this. And whatever reason, they couldn't do enough of this. The false starts, the sloppy play, it looked like they were still making the same mistakes. Like what was that? Is that your teaching, your communication? I do think it's a message that Doug tried to relay, but they weren't very good at it. This team has to be better at it. And I'm going to bring two teams up to you. And this is the way they have been a dynasty. The Patriots and the Chiefs. Watch the Chiefs. See, everybody complains about the Chiefs and the calls they get. See, I'm a big believer that most of the time when you get calls, it's because the other team isn't as good as you. If you really look at it in basketball, right, the team that gets the more fouls, all right, or fouls in the critical moments, usually is because, well, they got beat on a play one-on-one, or they got out-schemed or something like that, right? So you got to compensate and cheat a little bit. Well, the same thing on a holding call. Well, that defensive end, Chris Jones, is better than you, so you've got to cheat a little bit. Or that receiver is better than you, faster than you. Kelsey's bigger, stronger than you. You got to grab. Like, that's why you get a lot of penalties, and the Patriots did too, because they were fundamentally good or just better than you anyway. And they wait for you to make a mistake. The key of the Patriots was you wait to let the other team beat themselves. And that's what the great teams do. They don't win games because, you know what? Think about sports in general, as Hamby's talking about it. Most games are not won in sports. Mm-hmm. Most games are lost in sports. The greatest games, I always feel, when it's like, oh, man, both those teams played really well, and somebody, I mean, you could tell the couple of plays, they won the game. Because it happens so infrequently that people actually win the game. I'm going to go to a softball game here in a little bit, and somebody's going to make some errors. Somebody's going to walk more than strike out people. Somebody's going to strike out less than the other team. They're going to put the ball in play. Like, the other team is going to most likely lose. Whoever loses is going to lose the game, and it's going to feel like they lost the game.
Brent, that was our day 2 conversation with the high school baseball team. Is we can't lose games because everybody else, if we let them, they will.
So, I mean, my point, it seems very elementary to what you just said. It's kind of academic. It's sports in a nutshell, but I think we forget about that because we're so enamored with, Patrick, this is my thing about Patrick Mahomes. Like, I honestly don't really feel like watching Mahomes and the Chiefs play that Mahomes has been the biggest factor for them the last few years. I think their defense has been the biggest factor for them. But the big thing about Mahomes is he also doesn't make mistakes very often. They turned the ball over in that football game for the first time in like 7 weeks.
Right.
7 weeks or 8 weeks. What did the Bills do this year? They stopped turning the football over. Like, those are the things. And so for him to say that and preach that, like, I think what you just picked out was a really good one because I think people miss it. And that's a quick line, and it sounds kind of funny. It's like we got to stop worrying about winning games and stop losing games. But if you that is a quote, man, and put that up. And then every Sunday night or every Monday when we come in, did they win it or lose it?
Right.
You know? And did they do a better job of not losing it, or did they do too much of a job of trying to win it? And I'm going to equate this to the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. He tries to win the game too much, right? That's why he fumbled a lot 2 years ago. Every time was trying to make an extra play, trying to be the guy the guy that made the play. And that's when you fumble. In Philadelphia game, trying to win the game. There's a time for it, and it's a time when you need to do it. And you sooner or later in a 2-minute drill or whatever, you got to make a play. You got to catch the ball, you got to block, you got to defend, whatever you got to do. But most of the game, you really don't worry about minimizing penalties, minimizing turnovers, and minimizing mistakes. And if you do that, there's a really good chance the other team is going to make more mistakes than you. And 9 out of 10 times, the team that makes the least mistakes wins. So I do think that was a really good soundbite of what he said there, and kind of fascinating view of it, even though it kind of sounded funny.
Yeah.
Like it sounds weird to say. But I think there was a lot of nuance in there that shows me a little bit that he gets, like he knows the winning formula. Now, again, can he get his team to do it? Because I would say this. I thought Doug knew the winning formula, too. Like, I will go to my grave, and I know it didn't work out with Doug. But Doug knows how to win football games in the league. Like, you can't convince me otherwise. He knows how to win. Just didn't do enough here in the last year and a half of it for some reason. It just didn't work. For maybe a lot of reasons. But he definitely knows how to do it. Where are you going to take us next?
All right, I wanted to go to Trevor because, like you said, there was a lot. And his name was mentioned a lot, and obviously he's sitting right there. Oh, so we'll go to the first time he's mentioned about him, the stability factor of having a consistent play caller, a consistent voice in his head. So this is Cohen there.
I was telling Trevor this the other day that I've watched him play, live as a freshman in high school. It was Buford High School against Cartersville. Excuse me. Sorry, I was in I was in Georgia, man. That's all I knew. And I was seeing this freshman in high school play the position at a high level, standing tall, making throws, delivering. And I walked out of there like, man, this is different. I had no idea who he was. And then you fast forward to now, right? How do we make Trevor Lawrence in this offense as dynamic and explosive as we can be, right? We've got to build it around him as well, right? We've got to make every part of this about improvement, and he will be a part of that process. He's earned that right. I cannot respect his toughness and mentality and work ethic more than I do already from afar, and this will all be about Trevor right now.
Well, listen, we heard that a ton of times. You'll hear it in our one-on-one a little bit too. And I thought it was really a wild situation because I'm not a big fan of somebody sitting there talking about me. That's uncomfortable. I'm not a big compliment guy. I always think that's an awkward spot. You appreciate it, but it's an awkward spot. I'd rather it almost be assumed than said, And Trevor came, which I thought was great by the players to come. Foye Luikin, Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk. Tank Bigsby in there as well, and that was a good move for those guys to be there, and I thought that was great. I just thought it was so much about Trevor from Shad to Liam Coen that it had to be a little he's got humility, It had to be a little awkward at times. But there are two things to me that this says. Well, three things. Liam Coen ain't taking this job without Trevor Lawrence, so there's still a ton of belief in Trevor Lawrence. The Shad Khan and Cohen and everybody who made this decision, belief in Trevor Lawrence is still sky high. Hasn't wavered at all with their biggest investment. And we were right? They were, and smartly, this was logic, folks. And they were right, I think, this time, and we were right. They were going offensive guy from the jump. They were going offensive guy because their biggest investment is the quarterback. And they need to get that part as right as possible. So I think they had the right tact here going after this coach. And whatever coach they landed on was probably going to come on that side of the football. And then there's this other thing. Because remember the Dan Orlovsky deal last week where he's like, if I were Trevor, I'd ask for a trade, right? And I know that got carried away and we all kind of hammered Orlovsky. But the bottom line is there are players, and there's an assumption, especially now in a very powerful player league, especially with branding and the amount of money these guys make, a la Jalen Ramsey and others that say, hey, I'm unhappy. I think this is a better situation. And we always say, at least around Trevor, it's well, could he get to that point? There was Urban, now there's this, it's this, it's this. Jags got to be a little careful. I think people can at least insinuate. But we say, hey, Trevor loves it here, man. You can tell he feels right at home in Jacksonville. He wants to be the guy that turns this around. He wants to be the guy that flips it around. And he owns that. He likes that weight, I think. But yesterday, to me, if you're him and you're his camp and you're his team, and everyone involved with Trevor, and you're they haven't really done us great. At times the offensive line hasn't been good. They haven't put enough around us so good. We had the Urban stuff. There's plenty of things to kind of be nitpicking about, or maybe even not nitpicking and complaining about. You look at these other teams. They're putting this guy in a great position. What about us? Well, yesterday you heard it loud and clear, man. They love you, right? And they want you here. They believe in you. They love I know it might have been awkward at times for him because there was so much conversation about him. But I thought that was a huge part of yesterday, that it just was buried. And a lot of times as a coach, you don't want to single out people, right? He had no problem doing that with Trevor Lawrence. This is all about Trevor Lawrence. And that's just the way that position is. It's respected around the league. I don't think there's ego involved in it for the other players and everything else. They get what is on that young man here in Jacksonville. And this organization has now put their arms around that, told it to him, told it to everybody else. And if the money didn't say so, the word said so yesterday with this move with Liam Coen. So I thought that was a pretty loud part of this, that people might just assume, okay, they're all going to say that. No, they said it in a very loud way yesterday.
100%. And Shad said it too when he was asked what was the differentiating factor that made Liam Coen the guy. And he was like, well, look, I think the exact thing he said was quarterback development is the bedrock of NFL. Right? And that shows you exactly how Shad thinks, that it's all about the quarterback, developing him and getting him as good as he can possibly be. And according to him and his own words, Liam Coen pretty much had the better plan to develop, or at least the better track record to develop Trevor than anybody else did. Again, pretty much all but confirming that the defensive guys probably didn't even have a shot, and their only shot was if they struck out on all the offensive guys. I think Shad pretty much all but confirmed that. As far as what Coen said, it's exactly right. And the scary almost part of this is that there is, at this point, absolutely zero excuses left for Trevor Lawrence. You talk about the things that could have been potential complaints, potential nitpicks, not the saying he did or didn't, but they could have been. There's none of that now. Your offensive line is good enough. You have BTJ. Right, Aaron Rodgers always complains about they never take offense. The Jags did that. They have weapons on the outside. They have good running backs. Obviously, we want to see them improve. And now you have the head coach, who is not only just a former quarterback, and I get it. Everybody's going to come in and say, "Well, Doug was the same thing." Yes, Doug was an NFL quarterback. At the same time, this is why Shad wanted the young guy. There is a new, or not, I don't know, new is not the right word, but revamped way of coaching quarterbacks in the NFL with these young guys, and Liam Coen fits that bill to a T. So Trevor Lawrence, you've got everything that you could possibly need and want, in my opinion, to reach your full, as he says, capabilities. Coen said. I thought that he was careful not to say potential, and he didn't. He said capabilities, and that's what Trevor's got.
Yeah, well, we'll see more of that coming up in my sit-down in just a few minutes with Liam Coen after the break. Before we get to that break, though, one other thing I thought about with Trevor, or with this news conference, and I just wanted to get your thought, because I thought about it for a minute, and then I just came up again in my mind. The way this all played out, and some of the Shad sound bites I think we'll even maybe get to as the show goes on, there is a small part of me that does believe, and I know some of this comes in hindsight. I've been around this a long enough time to know they're going to never admit or try to say, hey, this guy was really our top choice, this guy was our second choice. But there's a part of me that kind of thinks that Liam Coen really might have been the Jaguars' top choice.
Yep. Yes.
As the head coach. I hesitate. I'm kind of battling back and forth, and it really doesn't matter. I mean, even without the bulky stuff, there's a very good chance that Ben Johnson could have, and maybe should have, picked the Chicago Bears. Like, you could make the argument. But I just wonder if maybe Liam Coen was the guy all along that really Shad coveted, because we heard he nailed his interview on that Tuesday night. And Shad seems to have fallen in love with him, and also had heard, when he mentions like the NFL stuff, the NFL puts these things together to show like the next wave of coaches and other things. Like, they kind of help the teams and ownership out, because these guys, where are they coming from, right? Well, obviously, he was referencing some of that. Like, he didn't know him, but he had heard about him, and his name was in circles. And it wasn't just like Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson, even though for the whole world in this cycle, going all the way back to the beginning of the season, it was Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson. Well, Liam Coen's name has been circled around quite a bit as well, probably coming off that McVey tree. And you just got the feel that maybe Shad really wanted Coen from the jump. No way to tell that. I don't think Shad would ever unveil that, but you certainly got that feel a little bit yesterday.
You got it from his words, right? When he said, I talk in NFL circles, and Liam Coen's name came up multiple times, and the key word there was unprovoked. That it wasn't Shad saying, hey, what do you think about Liam Coen? That other people were bringing him up out of their own volition, right, to Shad. Okay, there's your words. What do the actions say? The actions, right, speak louder. Well, he pretty much said, I'm not going to take no for an answer. That should tell you how much of a target, more than what he said in the press conference. That's the fluff. That's the back of it. The front of it is, I'm not going to take no for an answer. I don't care if you turned it down. I'll fire the guy, and we can talk about Balky later, but I'll fire the only stumbling block here, even though I have put myself on the line for him, my own reputation amongst fans. I've put that on the line for Balky in the past. I'll take that away because you're my top guy. I'm not going to take no for an answer. You're the guy, and he said it again. You're the guy. We got our guy. I believed it.
Yeah, I don't know. And by the way, like I said, it doesn't really matter. I think there was a chance of it all along that this was their guy. And again, they targeted, not everybody else targeted him or was willing to try to do the dance. I still think that's an equation here because Tampa wanted to keep him so bad. They thought that could be a little bit of a hurdle if you were other teams, so why even waste the time? But the Jags said, don't worry about that. We're going to go get our guy, to your point. We're going to even try to go get him, even though we know Tampa is going to keep him or try to keep him. And then once they did keep him for a minute, they still went and got him, and they made the move that was necessary with the bulky stuff too to make sure they get him. All right, let's do this. Take a time out. We're live on the Brent Austen Show. It's really all Liam Coen day. We're trying to react a little bit to the news conference, but you haven't heard this yet. We saved our one-on-one sit-down interview. Just played a little bit last night on TV on CBS 47 and Fox 30. But what does Liam Coen say about why he thinks he got this job and how quick he can turn it around? Plus, how hard it is to turn around the offensive line group. All those questions and more we ask Liam Coen when we sit down with him. It's coming up next here on the Brent Austen Show here on a Tuesday afternoon from Daytona Beach to South Florida with Austin in just a bit and all the way back home to Jacksonville. We're all over the state of Florida here on this Tuesday. We'll be right back.
If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
For the game day hustle and every day in between. Juggling my show, Jag Social, to going under the Friday night lights and a social life, it's a daily tournament. But this ride, MVP status. The all-new 2024 Lincoln Nautilus isn't just my car, it's my personal locker room, office on the go, and VIP lounge on wheels. Let's talk tech. My profile remembers everything from customizing my dash display to setting the ambient lighting and my signature scent. And wireless charging, essential for live tweeting scores. Whether I'm packing for a beach day with friends or heading to the gym, there's space for every passion. After dominating all day, this becomes my recovery zone. The massage feature is like having a personal PT on call. Life's a non-stop game, but with this ride, I'm always on my A game. The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. Drive your passion.
You trust CGC to make your water great, and now you can trust CGC with your plumbing needs as well. Fast, convenient scheduling, licensed and insured. A quick call away at 904-552-1242.
You never know when you're going to have an issue with a shower, toilet, or maybe it's a sink that sometimes is easy to fix. All right, let's be honest. I'm not fixing anything. I'm totally staging this because when I have a plumbing problem, I call CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing.
Trained professionals, transparent pricing, customer satisfaction. Small problem or even a bigger issue. Right now, save 10% off a new Rinnai tankless water heater. The experts with 25 years of experience at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing can do it all. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. For a limited time, CGC is waiving the trip charge on all related plumbing calls. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
Here on Spring Sports Media Day on Action Sports Jax.
It's an opportunity, an education beyond the classroom and the sports arena. Life skills, testing skills, social skills. It's called High School 912, a program focused on maximizing the growth of students in academics, sports, and life. And here's your chance to get involved. If you're a local business, or if you just want to make a donation to help support programs like ACT and SAT boot camps, career days, Leadership Academy, Financial Literacy Academy, and so much more.
Another Nice High School Panther, Jack Cohen.
High School 912 supports and hosts high school sporting events and several media days throughout the year. For more information on how you can get involved, visit jaxhighschool912.com.
It's the place we party in football season with Jaguars All Access. Welcome to Spring Sports Brewery, everybody. Say hello to our guest tonight. That is Trevor Lawrence. You can bring your party or event to Spring Sports Brewery in Springfield any day and any time. Rehearsal dinners, corporate events, birthdays. Here at Springs, you can enjoy the inside area and the outside area. Good for any weather, good for any occasion. Watch the games, play the games, shoot some hoops. Beer? Yeah, they have that. Plenty of choices. And sure, this is a brewery, but Strings is also a restaurant, and the food is fantastic. A full menu made from scratch meals. And if you need String Sports Brewery to help with a party at your place, they cater too. Family, beer, food, sports. Spring Sports Brewery in Springfield.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Well, it was a busy day in Jacksonville yesterday. Not only Liam Coen's introductory news conference, but also this news. There's a new women's basketball league and team franchise coming to Jacksonville. Donna Orender will be the commissioner of this Upshot League, and Cheryl Miller a part of this. Dee Brown was on hand as well. Zoyer Sports putting this on. Those are the folks that also own the Jacksonville Icemen, so it was at the Igloo, this news conference. And really a cool thing that we'll talk more about as the week goes along, but great for women's basketball. They'll play at the arena, 20 home games, and an opportunity for some of the talent right now that doesn't make the WNBA to be able to play in this league. 4 franchises to begin in the Southeast. As many as 6 could join the fray, at least in the early going. But I'm telling you, from a power play position, when you have Donna Orender and Cheryl Miller in the mix, that's a heck of a start. So really cool news with women's sports is booming right now, and they're taking advantage of it. Donna Orender, who lives in Jacksonville, former WNBA commissioner. Go look her up, by the way, if you don't know her resume. One of the most powerful women in sports, I would say, maybe even in sports history. And she's helping bring a basketball team, women's basketball team, to Jacksonville, this new Upshot League. So more on that coming up throughout the next couple of days. It's kind of getting buried in the news cycle, which of course is the Jags and Liam Coen. So I feel a little bit bad for that. Want to make sure we mention it, and we'll give it its due love coming up in the next couple of days as well. So we won't forget about you there on the basketball scene. We've actually got a busy basketball week. We have River City Rumble coming up on Saturday as well, and UNF and JU home tomorrow. JU really looking good in ASUN play. Hey, that's little Jackson. He stole the show, and we had a chance to sit down with his dad, Liam Coen, yesterday after that introductory news conference.
Well, how'd you do? How'd you think you did introducing yourself to Jacksonville?
Well, thanks for having me. This is just
it's a pretty cool experience, right? Just to go through, you've been at different press conferences and you've watched them and you go through it, but to be honored this way and to be sharing a stage with an owner in Shad that just is such a good human being that I've gotten to know over the last couple weeks here. I don't judge it. I probably won't watch it, but I'm really happy to be here.
As you climb this ladder, you probably put some together things, right? I don't know if it's a book or whatever else, or you're just compartmentalizing and learning each step of the way. But are there things that you want to make sure you hit on in a news conference like that when everybody's getting a first impression?
Definitely. I think it stands at the forefront of this thing is it's got to be about the players. This is all about them and the people that we surround our players with. The best coaching staff, obviously the nutrition, the strength, every part of it has got to be player-centric because they're the ones doing it. They're the ones playing the game. And so it's our job to make their lives better and easier so that they can go out and have the best experience and go play at a high level. That was the one thing that you really want to make sure that gets communicated is that this isn't about me, this is about them.
Why do you think you're the head coach of the Jaguars? Why do you think Shad Khan chose you?
I think if you look at the quarterback development over the years, right, even going back to my first quarterback I ever coached at Brown University, Kyle Newhall Caballero, and he ended up in the NFL. He ended up with the Raiders, and I would say the majority of the quarterbacks I've coached have ended up obviously either in the NFL or coaching the ones at a high level in the NFL. So that I think is the big part, right? And being able to produce offensive results. I think that's important. This league is still about scoring. It's about quarterback development. It's about scoring points. And we've been able to do that at a lot of different stops. And the people that I've been able to learn from have also done it at a high level for a long time. And I think that that's something that ultimately, we can learn from and continue to grow with here.
I wouldn't think you take this job without Trevor Lawrence. Maybe you do, but how much is Trevor a factor in you coming here and now what is about to happen?
Yeah, it's so much is about Trevor, right? And how do we make his job easier, right? I mean, he's the future of our organization. How do we continue to make his job easier? And that's not to take weight off of him, right? He wants that. He wants the responsibility. But we've got to help him, right? We've got to help him. We've got to build a run game. We've got to build a defense that is able to play at a high level so that we can help him not feel like every throw is the most important one, right? We've got to give him some layups, give him some easy ones so he can go play at a high level all the time. And this is very so much about him and his development.
You saw him as a freshman in high school. You brought that up.
Yeah.
But now that you've seen him or watched him, whether it's tape because you're watching another game or what you know about him, how much is untapped?
Man, I watched this guy go at the line of scrimmage, make protection calls, slide the protection, make a seam throw on a 3rd and 7 in a critical moment. You've seen multiple instances of a punt, an interception, a negative play, and what is his response? So many times you get judged by what your response is to adversity, and he's got it. He's got that. And so when you see those moments, well, man, it's just our job to continue to pull that out of them and get it to play at a consistent level.
I know it doesn't change in a day, but what is here that can help you do it quicker than maybe most jobs you can walk into?
I think obviously from a support standpoint from the top, the infrastructure here, the facilities, the town, the community, but you look at the quarterback, a rookie wide receiver that did what he did and has unbelievable skill set. 2 running backs that have a different ability that you can use in different ways. An O-line that we can continue to develop and work on. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you got 2 edge rushers that can really go. You got a corner that's playing at a high level. A couple linebackers that have done some good things. And oh, by the way, 20 draft picks in the next 2 years doesn't hurt. So those are exciting things, and you go and look at, hey, we're going to play games in London and do different things. We want to embrace that challenge and that new, and that's what we want to be a part of.
You painted a pretty good picture of the trenches.
Yeah.
And when that offensive group breaks the huddle. Mm-hmm. Is that hard to build? You just had it a little bit in Tampa. We're seeing a couple of teams in the Super Bowl that look like they have it. Is that hard to get?
I don't think it's insurmountable. I do believe it's a challenge. It's one that I do believe that these guys are probably ready for. Nobody wants to be at the bottom of anything, right, in this league. And when those guys embrace that challenge, they can look themselves in the mirror and understand what that challenge looks like. if they're willing to do the work, we'll all be all right, and it'll change and it'll get better. I have no doubts about that.
How aware of the last week and everything that surrounded it, and almost maybe uncomfortable were you in the middle of all of it?
Honestly, not much aware of the outside noise. I like I mentioned, I don't look at social media at the moment. Maybe I'll have to with some things here and work, but I don't have it. I made a decision going into this season that I wasn't going to look. I wouldn't Google my name. I wouldn't look at any of that. And that's that just leads you to maybe do things that are right for you, for your family, for the people that you love and that you respect. And it's never clean when you leave. It typically isn't. It's very rare that it's completely celebrated. But this is the opportunity that we were looking for.
It was a pretty good situation in Tampa, obviously. How much was the front office infrastructure here a possible impediment to?
Yeah.
Is that why you pulled out of the second interview?
No, I think when you looked at it, you kind of gave your word, right? And you say, this was an opportunity for the first time in our lives to go, whew, right? Like I could be on a beach right now. We could be on vacation. That was something that we had been yearning for. We had been missing for a long time. So that decision was made with family number one in mind. Well, then you start to gain a little bit more information about what this truly looks like, what it's going to look like maybe in the next 5 years, what you have a chance to do, though, right now. And that's when you start to look at it like, okay, maybe I need to do a little bit more digging. Maybe I need to go see what this really looks like. And that's what led us to Jacksonville.
The next general manager looks like you'll have a say in some of the alignment. And how important is that word, alignment? What are you looking for as you continue to build this out staff, but also this front office that you have to go step in step with?
The vision, right? The vision, and like you mentioned, that alignment that we're talking about is the people first, from a trust standpoint, from a communication standpoint. How do we look at building that first and foremost? That has to be the ground of it all. Okay, foundationally now, the values, the moral compass, and then looking at, do we make each other better? Does the front office, the coaching staff, do we make each other better to really, truly do this together? So excited about that opportunity to look at that, and you see some of the organizations that have had that success with similar models. Well, that's what I'm used to.
I would say it's been lacking. If I ask the question, who are the Jacksonville Jaguars? It's not an easy answer. How important is it to have an easy answer?
It is, and that's a really great point, because you want to have an identity, right? Everybody wants an identity because you can truly, again, like we said, be yourself. When you're comfortable with what your identity is and you're comfortable saying this is what we are, this is who we are, and this is what we represent, well, that's when you can truly have confidence, and that's what we want for these players. Be able to establish that. Now they can go out, have the confidence, and give Duval County something to truly be proud of.
How big of a deal is this for your dad?
Yeah.
And how big of a deal is it for you, for your dad?
Yeah, it's cool. This is special to do it together, right? I grew up watching him do it and wanted to be a part of that. And I was able to play for my dad. I was on the sidelines of those games. I'm in the locker rooms of those teams. Well, now he has that opportunity as well to be around it, to see it, to have an influence and impact on people as well. He can still evaluate. He can still coach it. So I'd be silly to not continue to lean on him for that guidance.
Did you really draw the wishbone at 4 years old?
I did. Yeah, I did. So I do kind of, I don't remember it, but I remember those drawings and what they looked like. And it was a little chicken scratchy, but there was 11 on the grass.
One last one on it. When did you know you were going to be a head coach in the NFL someday?
This would be silly. This sounds maybe different, but I knew at a young age, like at an age when I decided to do this, got into coaching. You always talk about dreams and seeing it. How do you want it to look like? Well, this is what I saw. This is what I saw. And how do you get there? Everybody's journey is different. I would say that this one hasn't been the easiest. I didn't just kind of land on third base with a great GA job at Florida, which I would have loved. But that's just the way it goes, and you learn how to do it along the way. And so I think that's kind of what's made this special.
I gave me that sweatshirt. I'm a guy from
East Providence, Rhode Island.
Oh,
for the LaSalle Ram. You want this? I mean, you want to throw that on at all?
I can't. Jamie Silva would kill. I can't touch it, but you know what? I respect it. I did lose a couple state championships to those guys, but man, that is pretty cool.
When I was there, I feel like LaSalle had the upper hand on that Thanksgiving day.
We were 44-2, I think, in 4 years, but those only 2 losses came to those guys.
All right, those guys will like it back home now, back at the alma mater.
That's awesome.
Good luck, man.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
it very much. Thank you.
Get local sports.
Obviously, with for the folks back home with Liam Coen, and there's our interview with Liam. A couple of things there. Obviously, his dad. One thing about his dad and him have a really good relationship. He said it when he walked in the building. His dad would love this when he was walking the office. If you saw some of that on social media from the Jaguars folks, then he got emotional talking about his dad in his opening statement yesterday. His dad's a big part of this. His dad coached at Salve Regina and then coached him in high school at LaSalle Academy in Rhode Island, and then his dad later would coach at Portsmouth. His dad actually has been going back and forth between New England and Florida for years now. They just moved up to the Tampa area. He did in like 6 months ago, I think. And now, looks like he'll be moving over to Jacksonville. So I think his dad will be around. It was good to catch up with his father yesterday as well a little bit. And he knew a lot about this team, and I think he's going to be around this thing. He's not going to be on his staff, but he's certainly a confidant to be able to rely on for Liam Coen through this entire process, which is pretty significant for him at 39 years old. The other thing that is pretty interesting to me is his explanation about the whole front office deal and how he could have been on a beach right now. And he got married a handful of years ago. Do you know, he hasn't taken his honeymoon yet. So he's actually planning his honeymoon to take this offseason to Italy and maybe even a couple other places. And now some of those places might get cut short, but I think he had promised his wife they'd finally go on their honeymoon because they've been moving around so much in all these different jobs. And I think he is going to still take that at some point to Italy, from my understanding and short conversations with him yesterday. So, this whole thing about Balky, I do think it had to be some factor from Shad's point of view to maybe even Liam Coen's point of view. But I do think there's also more to this. This was about opportunity, and this also was about family for him. And you just, listen, I mean, we said it on Wednesday of last week, even before Balky got fired. I was like, the Jags look bad here, but Liam Coen made a mistake. Like, you can't pass these kind of opportunities up. I think he started to figure out, you know what, I think I might be making a mistake here. This is a good possibility. This is a good job. And he might have still been able to move Balky either way. I think he might have still come and taken the job even with Balky in place at the time. Like, I think he might have done that. But we will never know that exactly. And I'm not trying to convince you of it. If you're most of the world's convinced that if Balky was here, the Jags wouldn't even have a coach yet. And you might be right. I just do think some of the things that he's been saying, it was more than Balky. And I can tell you just from some conversations I had yesterday, it was more than Balky, even though Balky might not have been a part of this even with Liam Coen in place. I think he does love the idea of being able to pick his alignment. Alignment is important to him. And he mentioned that in several different places. So, anyway, the Balky stuff to me is probably a little bit water under the bridge by now. And I think people now move on and look forward to who the next GM of the Jags is going to be. I think that part of the conversation is important. We're already seeing the staff start to take shape with Heath Farwell and defensive coordinators and being interviewed. So he's moving quickly on those kind of things. Now, the GM I thought was fascinating. I had never heard this about that February 28th day. Of being kind of like a deadline to kind of get things in place for the GM. And Shad Khan said that. So the Jags will have one in place by the NFL Combine in the next month or so, at the very least. But they want to move even faster than that, and that process has already begun. We already know about the Tony Baselli factor here. We all knew it was happening in some way, shape, or form. And I think Shad Khan definitely is going to act on that this time. But by him not saying what role that is and what the league role needs to be, like the league has to say on that, I think was interesting. It doesn't tell me and shout at me that EVP is going to be the role, which again, I'm a big fan of it not being EVP for a variety of reasons. If you have any of those questions, let me know and I'll tell you. But we did a whole little 20-minute thing on it last week on the show. So a lot coming out of this thing in the last day or so. But in my sit-down interview with him, I thought some of those things were fascinating. And even how quick he said you can turn, one, the simple answer of who the Jacksonville Jaguars are, and two, the offensive line. Like, I don't feel like the offensive line changes overnight, but he kind of felt like it did. You can change it pretty quick. Now, you need things to go your way. You need to make some moves. You need to instill belief, and you need to change stuff, but you can do it. And he thought that could happen pretty quick. Let's see how fast he can make it work here in Jacksonville with some of these things and get it right. And we do know this. This is not 2013 Jags. This is not 2021 Jags. This is really not even 2022 Jags coming off Urban Meyer. There's stuff here. And this thing's ready to go in a lot of respects if you coach it the right way, scheme it the right way, add the pieces the right way. That part I think we all think could happen. And you know, I've been on record for the last few weeks. 2025 is going to be a good year for the Jags, I believe. I really do. And, of course, I'm a positive guy to begin with. But I would have said that if this was Liam Coen, Ben Johnson, Robert Saleh, you, me, I think they're hungry. Murphy's Law is goofy on this team this past year. 10 one-score losses. Hadn't happened since like 1966. 9 turnovers on the season. Come on. That doesn't happen. Like, you're going to accidentally do things better than both of those numbers I just gave you. The question is, can you sustain it? The Jags have not been able to sustain winning, really some in the Jack Del Rio days, but going all the way back to the late 90s. That's the mission of Liam Coen, is to be able to figure all these different things out that helps sustaining it. That's the mission of Tony Baselli being involved, Shad Khan, and the next GM of this football team. How do they sustain it? And he's been in some pretty good shops, knows what it looks like, and we'll see if Liam Coen can help engineer that here in Jacksonville. So that's my sit down with Liam Coen. More of that on actionnewsjacks.com, which, by the way, you can just find it on actionsportsjacks.com now. So actionsportsjacks.com will have the entire interview here in just a little bit if you missed it. And you can always go back and listen on the podcast here on the show. That gets put up every day at 1:30, so you can listen on your drive home, and you can always watch the show replays on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network later in the evening, or on YouTube and on Twitter and all the social media places like Facebook and Twitch as well. Brent Martineau down in Daytona Beach. I got a couple softball games today I'm going to. That's why I'm hanging out near the track, even though we will have a lot of Daytona 500 coverage coming up over the next couple of weeks. We are going to catch up with Austen Lane. He's down in South Florida. He's going to join the show in just a bit. We'll get his thoughts on what happened yesterday. We have a lot more reaction from the news conference I want to get to. Jason Hamby back in the studio is doing a great job. Let's take a time out. We'll come back. More reaction from yesterday from Shad Khan, from also Liam Coen, and Heath Farwell sticking around here in Jacksonville. I think it's a great move, and you got to believe Cam Little, Ross Matisic, and Logan Cook, among others, are very happy about Heath Farwell, the special teams coordinator, coming back here in 2025.
When it's time to get a new car for anyone in your family, just remember, nobody but Nimnick, the #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville. Get the latest price breaks on 2023 and 2024 models, or the newest 2025 vehicles in the showroom on Phillips Highway, or shop online at nimnickbuickgmc.com 24 hours a day. GMC Sierras, Yukons, and the redesigned Acadias, or get the all-new redesigned line with Buicks. It's nobody but Nimnick, and part of the reason why is this is a first-class buying experience here at Nimnick Buick GMC. You're not just a customer, you're a friend. This is about getting a vehicle that best fits you and getting you on the road, and also helping you and your family down the road. Nimnick has a treating you right guarantee, courtesy, respect, fairness. The most Buicks, GMCs, and Jacksonville's only Car Bravo dealer, nobody but Nimnick. Who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? Nobody but Nimnick GMC. We are professional grade. Happy New Year for the UNF Ospreys, and basketball season is in the teeth of conference play right now. A slow start for the men's team out of the gates with 3 straight losses, but then they broke through in the win column with a win over Bellarmine. The offense scored 98 points in that one. A long way to go, including a stretch the next few weeks with a chance to go on a winning streak. 8 home games in the next 3 weeks for the men's and women's basketball team combined. So check out UNFOspreys.com for the latest in news, schedules, results, and tickets. UNF Arena is a great place to watch a game, so go check them out. And while the hoop teams are battling some snow while on the road, the spring sports season has already arrived with the men's tennis program notching its first win under new coach John Collins. Swoop with the Ospreys in the winter and the spring, inside and outside. Check out UNFOspreys.com for all things Ospreys. I've been telling you about CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing for a long time now. Their drinking water systems remove up to 99% of contaminants.
We've had a Connecticut water softener and drinking water system in our home for more than 7 years. You can see the difference whether you're washing clothes, the dishes, or what I like to do most, fill this up for some coffee every morning, and mostly all day. Remember, if you're not filtering your water, you are the filter. Don't be the filter.
Right now, save $1,000 or more when you bundle a Connecticut Premier Softener with a Connecticut K5 drinking water system. The experts at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing will test your water for free and determine your water score. Don't know your water score? CGC will find out and recommend the appropriate Connecticut water treatment solutions so you can improve it. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. Ask about our 90-day love it or leave it guarantee. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
When it comes to trucks, I know exactly what I want. And at Bozard Ford, they make it easy to get exactly that. Let's go make this truck a little more my style. With Bozard Built, I can create my perfect truck right here. Lift kit? Check. Premium wheels? You bet. Advanced lighting package? Oh yeah. The Bozard team works their magic. From bumper to tailgate, I'm making this truck mine. It's everything that I wanted and more. From the field to the gym to weekend adventures. This truck's built for my journey. Bozard Built. Customized for your lifestyle, built to exceed your expectations. Check out the inventory and available options at bozardbuilt.com. Unleash your dream ride. Customized, covered, and Bozard approved.
New to town or always been in town, everyone is always looking for a good pizza place. Our place is Donato's Pizza. We love it and still do love it. When I tell my family I'm coming to Donato's, they say, wait a minute, you gotta order some for us. So this is not all for me. Let me tell you what the Martineaus get when we put an order in. Well, pepperoni pizza, we usually get more than one of these. And then there's the works, a little bit of everything. And then this is the pizza that can be polarizing for some out there. I don't know why. Hawaiian pizza, some love it, some don't. At Donato's, you're gonna love it, especially with that cinnamon sprinkled on top. Try the pizza my family likes or try your favorite. Right now, you can use the code BRENT20 and get 20% off your order. Every viewer and listener is important to us, and at Donato's Pizza, every piece is important. From fresh ingredients to the dedicated team members and you, the valued customer. Donato's Pizza, where every piece comes together for a winning combination. Jack's Beach and Mandarin locations. Donato's Pizza, every piece is important.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Well, there it is yesterday. Stuart Weber taking that picture, and a pretty profound one at the news conference. And, hey, hat tip to our folks, our entire Action Sports Jax team. Even though Hicken doesn't mention CBS 47 and Fox 30 in totality and not first, must not make as much money as he does from that other place. We'll forgive him, I guess. I was giving him a hard time. Stuart Weber was all over the place yesterday. He was actually at an event for the Armada in the morning. He'll have more on Fleet and Footy at 2 o'clock on Thursday. They'll have some special announcements coming up, and you won't want to miss that show if you're big in soccer and what's going on. So there was a huge event there and what's about to transpire with the Jacksonville Armada. And then, of course, we had the Upshot League. Stuart went over to that. And in the meantime, he came back for the Cohen one, and Olivia and Marcel were all set up for our one-on-one interview. So we had a lot of moving parts, and 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6:30, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock news. Of course, we did our noon hit right during the show yesterday. So it was a big day, obviously, in Jacksonville, and we had it covered for you with Action Sports Jacks. we had some fun for sure. So I'm sitting next to Hicken in the news conference, right? And what people don't understand, and even my wife was talking about it yesterday, it's like, what do you mean? You don't have like a list of things and you guys don't talk about what you're going to say and ask? And I'm like, the setting is very unusual. Well, not unusual. It's comfortable for us. I mean, we're used to this. But you don't know when they're going to call on you, right? In the news conference. They know you're going to eventually call on you. And the other part is when you have this list in your mind, like you have an idea going in, like I'm going to ask this and this. And then I also knew I was getting a sit down with Liam. So I didn't necessarily want to ask him the same stuff I was thinking about asking him, even in the sit down. So I'm just trying to get you like in my mind. And like, I didn't need him to say exactly the same thing on our cameras as he was in the news conference. You know, I was going to take the extra 10 minutes to maybe dive into some different things or, you know, some of it you're going to repeat. Right. But bottom line is, like, I was in the front row, and so, like, John Dever, who's the Jags PR guy, like, I was trying to, like, get his attention because I wanted to ask a question a little earlier. And then I felt like I was like this for, like, the whole... for like 10 minutes because I was in the front row and he's kind of elevated, so he's looking straight out, and it's like I wanted to be like, hey, wait. Hey, like the old Rick Ballou thing on the Zoom call where he was mad that he didn't get. This was Rick Ballou on the Zoom call when he didn't get a question asked that time because he was so mad about it. At least Rick got his question in this time, so we didn't have to hear about that. But anyway, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So anyway, I love Rick, by the way. I just think it was funny. I almost hit him back on Twitter about that yesterday. I was like, I don't know if he'll take this right, so I'm not going to do it. So anyway, they were coming next to me, whoever had asked before, I'm not sure, maybe it was DeRocco or something. And so Dan gets the microphone, and so Dan's got the mic, and now I'm like, okay, well, you just asked the question, and then you can hand it to me. And he asked about Baselli. Well, that was going to be my question, was about Baselli. And really just more about the front office part. So he like stole my question right before for Shad. But of course you had a couple other ones. And honestly, I thought in a way, and I'm not a gotcha guy when it comes to this stuff. Like I know the fans want you to like bury people and all. Like we just did that a few weeks ago. You better do this. You didn't ask tough enough questions. I didn't hear what I wanted to hear. Like, yeah, we would have asked this. You didn't, like, no, you wouldn't have. You wouldn't. You're a little louder when you're typing on this thing. Okay. But I didn't think Shad had really answered the question about Trent Baalke in the last couple of weeks. Like he was asked, but I really didn't think he asked. And he answered it. And it wasn't more like he answered it from a non-satisfactory point of view. I just kind of thought we were moving on and it still needed a little context, in my opinion. And I don't know if everybody else felt like that, but I did, at least at the time. And so that's why I asked him the question, which obviously got an interesting response. You probably have that part. Maybe we can play that in a minute. But that's why I asked him that question, because I genuinely wonder, what do you learn from process to process, right? Like, what do you learn from the last time you did this to now that you did this? What did he learn in the last couple of weeks that he didn't make the move that we thought he should have made 3 weeks ago, but he made it last Wednesday instead? Like, I mean, I thought it was a fair question, honestly, but he took it and ran with it, and obviously it made for a little bit of a moment yesterday. Here it is.
Shad, just begin with you. Do you regret 3 weeks ago not hitting the reset button with front office and coach? And over these last 3 weeks, have you learned something different in this process maybe than previous processes?
My goal is to do the right thing for the team. And, I believe I'm doing that.
Have you learned anything in this process?
Every day
versus-
is learning, okay? If you're not learning, you're dying. So life for me is about continuous improvement and continuous learning, okay? I've learned a lot today, okay?
Me too.
Okay,
Liam,
good.
welcome. Okay.
So it's please throw some easy questions like that, okay?
What do you make of that? Because my phone starts blowing up on that, and I'm like, I didn't feel in the moment that was that big a deal. I thought it was kind of fun. I actually went back and watched it yesterday because Steph was tutoring. So she's like, what did you do now? That's what she texted me yesterday. She's like, what did you do now? I'm like, I don't think it really was much. So we watched it. She's like, that wasn't that bad. Like, it was fine. But it was really interesting to see people's reactions to that. I talked to Shad after the thing, too. He was fine. Like, it wasn't like it was that big of a deal.
Right.
But it was interesting the way he took it and led to a pretty good line, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, he made it about as abundantly clear as possible that he didn't really want to get into any specifics whatsoever about Balky. And like you said, it had been asked before, and in my opinion, he dodged them all, and was about as short. I mean, you don't need any more proof than his response to your first answer, which was pretty much, I always want to do what's best for the team, and I believe I've done that. Like, yeah, okay. But, that's where we wanted the insight as what all led to Balky being fired and how much was Cohen, the object of that, and obviously you get nothing on it. But as far as, like, was he snappy or frustrated? No. I just think that he was, kind of being trying to make light of it in a sense, and as in, like, hey, I respect it, but I'm not answering it really, so let's move on.
I thought it was so the funny part of that was I was going to Liam next, and Liam was laughing. Like, he was like buried, dying, laughing at the response from Shad. So I thought that part was pretty interesting. I mean, it was just, it was a wild thing, but I do, listen, I'm going to be consistent with this. I think last Wednesday was eye-opening for Shad, and maybe the whole process was, but we felt it on Wednesday because when he pivoted and made the move. And what I mean by that is I think there have been people telling him that about Balky for a long time. But I think he had to flush some of that out, vet some of that out. I don't think just because he everybody's talking about doesn't mean he saw it. And he wasn't going to make a reaction, like a reactionary move off just what other people thought all the time. And that's okay. But I just think he will now allow more voices into the process. That's really what I'm getting at. I said that last week. I believe that. I think we're going to see it. We're going to see it with the front office. I think we're going to see it with Tony Baselli. I think that voice is going to be more prominent. I think it already was in last week's process. So he might not want to say it and take us through everything, and that's fine. But I do think these are learning processes that happen for owners and for anybody doing a hiring job. And I believe there was probably some learning lessons in here. As Shad said, I learn every day. You're not learning, you're dying. Speaking of learning and dying, Austen Lane is learning in the cage, not dying in the cage. What? You didn't like that transition? You didn't like that sports to life transition right there?
That I'm dying anytime soon, but I appreciate the introduction. Better than the Costco guy. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no doubt. Hamby, you good with Austen? I kind of jumped the gun. I didn't even check you, but hopefully, I think we can all hear him and everything's good. But good workout in today.
Yeah, great workout. And today was the hardest day. Today's sparring day with bigger gloves. So we wear 18-ounce gloves, 5 rounds, and got a whole lot of Junior Dos Santos. So that was good for me. Going against a former heavyweight champion. Dude still got it. I guess I'm trying to be like him when I'm older because he's in his, I think he's 41. And dude is a specimen, and dude knows how to push the pace. So great day of work, man, and obviously excited to talk about what transpired yesterday with the press conference and everything. And Shad Khan now seems to have Brent Martineau on his number one hit list. So I hope you enjoyed the yacht, Brent. I hope you enjoyed the lobster bisque. I hope you enjoyed getting those Venmos because it's all over. Welcome to the dark side now, Brent.
I don't. So that was your interpretation, or are you just reading Twitter?
Oh no, I just saw your tweet from yesterday. No, you're all good, man. No worries.
Yeah, I'm fine. By the way, don't worry about Brent. All right, I'm all good. But
that's why he's on location on the run right now.
Yeah, I'm on the run. That's awesome. Hey, one more thing. I was giving you guys a little bit, paint the picture of how these things work, and so I was telling you about, like, Hick. I'm sitting next to him, and here's how childish Hicken is at 61 years old, right? He's like, so one of the things, if you watch that news conference, and you go watch it back now that I say this, because Steph did the same thing, and then she was locked in on it. And so Liam, right away, he was like, hey, great question, Demetrius. Great question, so-and-so. Sure. Great question, right? That's a great question. And so he asked the question, whatever he asked him, I don't even know, about running game or something. He's like, he's answering the question. And Hick's like, you thought it was a great question.
Hey, I would do the exact same thing, Brent. That's why I don't go to those news conferences.
And so, like, I'm like, dude, will you listen to him? Like, I mean, we're like the kids in school talking while, like, the professor's answering, right?
Yeah.
And so I go with my whole exchange on Shad, and then I ask Liam the question, and Liam's laughing and everything, and he never says great question. He's like, no great question for you. It wasn't a great question. So it was just so funny, like inside the walls of the news conference. And by the way, I think Hamby, I think we need to cut up every great question now, so we can have it as a little bit of a drop. All right. So, like, and even for others. So when Demetrius this fall in a news conference asks a question, we can drop it in. Great question, Demetrius.
Oh, Hamby. Hamby, you better be cutting it up when we have Money Mike Burris on, because every question I ask is a great question according to him. So let's go ahead and reserve this for meteorologists as well, please.
Fun stuff. All right, give it to us, man. What was your take on everything that went down yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I thought it's what it had to be, right? Like, I'm not going to read too much into it. You know, he mentioned a few players by name. That's what I was watching out for a little bit. He mentioned the run game. He mentioned Brian Thomas Jr. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is the biggest part there. So no surprises there. Mentioned Luke Fortner. So, hey. Hey, Mitch Morse, it's been fun. We'll see you. No, not really. But no, like, overall, like, I thought it was great, you know. And what I'm curious to see, because I think if you really want to read into it, is that you had a guy who seems to speak the language of the players, who seems to understand that locker room dynamic, and obviously he got the best out of those guys in Tampa Bay. What I'm curious of is, does he have, you know, the demeanor where if it does go wrong, can he implement his system, right? And more so, can you kind of have that old school demeanor when you need it, right? Because this isn't going to be perfect. You aren't coming into a situation where you have a great offensive line right now, where you have a Tristan Wirfs, right? Like, you don't really have, I don't think, those guys. So you got to raise that attitude a little bit. And that's what I'll be curious to watch, whether it's at practice, whether it's during training camp, is, you know, can Liam Coen kind of get a little bit of that dog in him and reinforce those ideas? No, that's why you have coordinators as well. That's why you have position coaches, but it's going to start with Liam Coen. So that's really the only thing I would say is, seems like a great guy, seems like he's got the plan in place. Does he have that tough demeanor when you need it?
Yeah, hey, that's a good call. I like a lot of things you said there from the play. He speaks the players' language. Good stuff. I really want to talk about winners and losers before I forget to do that in just a minute, so I'll come back to it. Hamby, don't let me forget about that. But I think what's interesting about these guys and these offensive guys, and I brought up Raheem Morris said in an interview with Pewter Report, I think I brought this up yesterday, that, like, he said he was laughing about Liam Coen. He said he's stylish, right? He's like a Lululemon guy. And we saw the Baker Mayfield stuff and everything else. And I think you paint the picture. Sean McVey, right? He's like that young bachelor, like when he goes to the NFL, and he doesn't look like tough guy, mean guy at all. I think you look at Kevin O'Connell, like when he's going over, you're like, oh, okay, clean cut dude, like offensive end. Ben Johnson might have a little bit of this. The Zach Taylors of the world have a little bit of this. But I think a lot of them have been successful because I think they do have the part that you just asked. I think they know of a way to relate to player and say, all right, dude, let's go. We got to get after this, right? Like there's this interesting balance, and it's not an old school way. It's not a Tom Coughlin way. It's not a Nick Saban way. It's not a Bill Belichick way, and that way worked for a long time. I actually think that's what makes a little bit of Pete Carroll good in the Raiders, because I think Pete Carroll has that even as an older guy. I think he has a little bit of that balance. But there's something else that happens here, and I always like this about Doug Peterson, and then I think at the end of the day, it might have got him in a bit of trouble. I said this in an interview with Doug one-on-one a couple years ago. I was like, you can tell you have some ego and bravado. And I think you need some of that, right? You're in charge of this group of men in $1 billion business making big-time decisions where this stuff matters. You need to have that. But you can sense that when O'Connell talks. You can sense that when McVey talks. And I think you can sense a little bit of that when Liam Coen talks. He's got a little swagger to him, like he's comfortable. Austen, I know the Duval thing didn't go over well. I don't think he gives a damn. Like, that's my point, right? Like, I don't think he cares.
I'm not gonna lie. Because I was watching the press conference live. When he said that, I went back, said forget the rest of the press conference, screen record it, and I was gonna send it when you were asking the questions and be like, okay, well, the Vegas has confirmed over/under is 4 games after that Duval, but I figured I try to be professional about it and let you do your thing. Listen, I'm not concerned with the whole Duval thing. Like, yeah, have I heard better ones? You better believe it, right? But like, that's not gonna be the litmus test if he's gonna be a good coach or not, right? But what I need to see it, and I agree with you. I think if you watch an interview with Sean McVey, if you watch an interview even with like a Kyle Shanahan of the past, like, you know, they kind of come across, I don't want to say they're dorky, because that's not the right way to put it, right? But then, like, we watch an Aaron Glenn press conference where it's like, hey, this is, bleep, this is New York Jets football now and everything, and he's got that machismo. He's got that bravado. And that's more what you get with a defensive guy as opposed to the analytical guy of an offensive mind. But I agree with you, Brent. I think it's finding that balance. And listen, I think Liam Coen would have it. I don't think he would have aced the interview if he didn't have a little bit of that bravado. What I'm just trying to say is, maybe saw a little bit of it at the press conference, but I'm going to reserve judgments until I see it at practice.
All right, guys. Hamby, biggest winner of yesterday outside of Trevor Lawrence, okay? Trevor's an obvious winner here. They get mentioned 500 times. Who do you think the biggest winner was? Or you can list some, by the way. I don't mind. It doesn't have to be one. Biggest winners, though. Don't go all the way down the roster yesterday.
Yeah, I think Christian Kirk was a big winner for me yesterday.
That's interesting. I knew you were going to go there, and I'm stunned by that. Why do people say that?
I don't know. Was he there?
Yes, he was there.
Almost. I mean, that's part of it. It's like, for whatever reason, out of sight, out of mind, he was hurt. You think that he's not, like, he's potentially not going to come back next year, and then you see him there, and who is he with? The very core of the team, proving to me that's like he is one of the biggest leaders of this team. He's a huge part of it. He doesn't show up at that if there's any other reality, and outside of just that, the fact that he was there. The way that Liam talks, it seems like the way he wants to orient his offense is like, it seems like he's already got these almost equations that he's drawing up to mix and match BTJ and Christian Kirk, that he knows that Christian Kirk is a really good football player. That even kind of when he goes back to talking about when he was in Jacksonville at the MEC for the inter-squad practice stuff, when he's talking about the oohs and ahs on the other side of the field, to me, he's talking about BTJ and Christian Kirk. And he knows that Christian Kirk had a lost season last year, and he's going to get him to become that premier slot guy that he can be, that we've seen at times.
All right, I want to stay on that. Hey, Austen, you can throw some winners and losers. No, let's not go losers yet. Winners. But what's your take on the Christian Kirk stuff? Because, by the way, there are a lot of people saying that. And I think some of it's coming from Trevor's going to have a little bit of a say in what this looks like. I think that was part of the presser, and I think that, they're best friends. He'll be able to keep him. And I do think that might be a factor, but is that why people are clinging to the Christian Kirk big winner?
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the input of Trevor Lawrence, right, of kind of bouncing the ideas off Trevor Lawrence. I saw a lot of that too on Twitter. And I'll be honest, I felt it a little bit, but not to the point where it's like, oh, he's for sure going to be on this team. Like, I still think there's room for, if you wanted to trade, there's a lot of things can happen. I get that he's Trevor's dude, but once again, what's best for the team? So I'm not sure. I think it depends how the draft shakes out. I think it depends, free agency, what you're taking a look at, but possibly Christian Kirk. My two winners, because I really had two winners that stood out to me for that press conference. The first one being Josh Hines-Allen, who was mentioned a few times, even when, and once again, I told you guys this yesterday, what I'll be listening for is the order of the players that he addresses, because that goes to show you kind of like the hierarchy of who's on his mind the most. I think there was once, but it might have been on two separate occasions when he addressed like the quality of players that they have in the locker room. He mentioned Joshua Hines-Allen first, twice, I believe. And this is before Trevor. This is before Brian Thomas Jr. And keep in mind, this is a guy who's on the offensive side of the ball, who's not on the defensive side of the ball. So I think it speaks volumes when Josh Hines-Allen gets mentioned twice. And I get it, he's getting the money, right? He has the contract and everything. But I think it goes to show you just how much of a cog and how much of a key he's going to be for this team, because if you have your offensive-minded coach mention you first thing in the list of players, that means a lot. The second winner I'm going to say is Shad Khan, because through this whole process, one guy that I think, we can all agree maybe had some egg on his face was Shad Khan. And the questions that were asked yesterday to try to take him down that road of, hey, man, what happened with Trent Baalke? Like, do you regret what happened? He didn't really take that bait at all. And he always deferred to it. So we didn't really get any answers there. And he kept the focus more on, obviously, Liam Coen and doing what's best for the Jaguars. It's almost now like Shad Khan's an afterthought. Keep in mind, guys, it was a rough ride to get to the point to sign Liam Coen. Filled with bad optics, filled with a rough road. And now that's almost all an afterthought, because now we're focused on Liam Coen, whether it's the grade or how he said Duval, or whether it's how much he's best friends with Brent Martineau. Like, we don't remember Shad Khan anymore. So I think that's great for Shad Khan, because the more that we can, I don't want to say it sounds like a bad way, but the more we can forget about Shad Khan and the more that he can kind of stay out of the spotlight in terms of bad optics, the better for this team.
Yeah, very well said. I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, he did a masterful job of keeping the focus on Liam. And I thought you might even say this, but Liam did a great job of pumping him up in almost every interview, too. It wasn't just the presser. Even with us, he was like, hey, man, this guy's awesome, So I think to paint that.
They both inspire each other, Brent.
They both inspire each other. That's right. So you're right. That's a good one. Listen, there were a lot of winners. Heath Farwell's got a new contract extension. He's a winner in this. Trevor Lawrence is a winner in this. Brian Thomas Jr. mentioned a bunch, but he was going to be a winner for every coach, I think, out there. I said this earlier, Austin. I think one of the big winners was Travis Etienne. Like, I think this is a fan base that's not so sure about Travis Etienne. I think every time this guy mentioned the parts that they have, they said, we've got two running backs. And I think that's Bigsby and Etienne. So I thought that was pretty significant every time he mentioned them, to be able to, is that the way he feels? Like, hey, they don't have to worry about that spot, and I can use Etienne. Is he a piece of the puzzle? You talk about the imagination, Hamby, right? And what he's already drawing up, and the formula, and the football plays that he's going to call. Well, is Etienne already in his mind at the way he can be used? I thought that was big. I didn't think these guys were winners until I sat down, and in that we just played that in the last hour, our sit down. I didn't know about the linebackers, because on defense he only really mentioned the two guys that can go and the pass rushers. Well, he did in the sit down with me also mention Tyson Campbell. He believes in him. Now you kind of have to be. They're paying him quite a bit of money. But I think he talked about a couple of linebackers, which means Foye Oluokun. Was he also talking about Devin Lloyd there in my sit down? He didn't say him, but was he talking about, hey, we got some stuff here with Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokun? So I think he's got confidence in some of these pieces. Some of them you have to read into. But going back to the Christian Kirk one, guys, this is where we flip it to losers maybe in this deal. Or do you feel like there are some? And I think we're reading into it, so let's do that with all respect to the players. But that's what we've got right now. See, I thought Kirk and Ingram, in my opinion, were a bit of the losers in this conversation, not the winners. They were Kirk was in the room, Ingram was not. But Ingram's been a big part of this thing and been very good. You can put him down as one of the best free agent acquisitions this franchise has ever had. Kirk had a career year, was on his way to another one, but now has been hurt. And we know he's a leader. We know he's good buddies, and so is Ingram with Trevor. But he never mentioned Kirk in the room. He didn't mention Ingram when he didn't say we've got this great tight end. And I never really heard it come up unless I missed it in some other spots. So I actually was listening to your advice, Austen, from the other day and thinking about, okay, who's he talking about? And the reason, I'm not telling you he's down on those guys. I just think he knows what we all know. Those guys have dollars that you could potentially move or restructure or trade, or you still have to do some gymnastics to make it feel like, okay, we can still have these guys part of it, but I'm not sure the way it looks right now on paper, these guys are going to be a part of it. That was the way I took it. We're going to find out who's right, who's wrong, but I didn't think this was the greatest of days for guys that we really like and believe in here in Jacksonville, Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, Austen.
Took the words right from my mouth, Brent. Yeah, and this was more on the Evan Ingram train for me in terms of, and once again, it's kind of hard to say losers because,
exactly,
it was like a small press conference. But, once again, I'm not going to say loser, but I'm just going to say, my ears kind of perked up a little bit that I didn't hear him. Just because if you go back to what Tampa Bay did this last season when Mike Evans went down, when Chris Godwin went down, it was kind of the Kate Otten show. It was kind of more of the tight end show to try to get some help from Baker Mayfield. So Liam Coen values a great tight end. And I think last year, remember, and we went over this already, but with Trevor Lawrence, when he got that cheap shot, Evan Ingram was the guy that was kind of speaking out a little bit. Evan Ingram was the guy that kind of put the team on his back and said, that's not acceptable. So take the talent off the field, which he definitely has, but also just the mentality and everything. I was a little disappointed that he didn't mention Evan Ingram, because I think going forward, and whatever the contract says, how old, it doesn't matter, man. If I'm a head coach in the NFL and I'm brand new to a team, I need guys that I can count on, and I need guys to know how to do things the right way. And I've always sensed that Evan Ingram knows how to do things the right way. So to echo what you were saying, Brent, I was a little disappointed that Evan Ingram, at least from what I saw as well, didn't get mentioned at all.
Let me ask you this. We've asked this question before without the coach, okay? And this is a business. These guys get it. I mean, we had Kirk on the show, in late December, early January, and he was like, listen, I want to be around here. He's having a baby. They just, I think, built a house or moved into a house. He's recently married, starting a family. He loves it here. He's close to Trevor. He wants to be in Jacksonville. But he's like, hey, it's a business. I get it. I can't control some of this stuff. And, my view on it has always been, all right, I think he's a restructure candidate because I really do think he likes it here. And maybe coming off injuries, he gets it. He's not $24 million on the cap is kind of a lot for a guy coming off 2 years of injuries. And I think he's probably a realist. Now, I don't know if his agent is or anything else. We'll see. But I always thought that there was room to maybe restructure. And maybe that's why you don't even touch that, even if you're Cohen at this kind of setting. But I also think we've had conversations. Is it going to be Ingram? Or is it going to be Kirk? How do we feel like there's a real good chance that both of these guys are on the roster even before Cohen was introduced yesterday?
I still think
that's hard to say, Brent. I think one of them is going to be on the roster. Yeah, I have one of them being on the roster. Let me ask you guys this question, and it's a little early for Shock Your Mock still, but let's set Travis Hunter. Okay. Let's say that the Jaguars get Travis Hunter and maybe in some realm they put him at wide receiver, or maybe they trade down and get a different wide receiver, whatever the case may be. I have a hard time believing that they're going to try to bench Gabe Davis for as much as you're paying him. And you can't really cut Gabe Davis, right? So I feel like you're stuck with him. How does it feel if they draft another wide receiver first, second round, is Kirk kind of the odd man out here, guys? Or am I wrong to think, does Gabe Davis get benched then? And even though you're paying him that much money, it's like, okay, well, we got somebody better. Like, how's that going to work out, do you think?
It's a tough one because, you know, you don't have both guys. Brent, you got us now, sounds like? Brent might not, but I don't know. I just think that you probably can't get both guys in. But you probably have to find a way because, Liam, you don't want to just – I don't know. Some guys would probably be hesitant to just come in and automatically just rip guys who have played well in that uniform before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I feel like before knowing that he's got multiple years – he might be more hesitant with roster changes as far as splash cuts in this first offseason before he ever gets to coach a game than he does maybe in offseasons in the future.
But yeah, and just to kind of go off that, Hamby, but like I'm not wrong here, right? Like if a player was going to have any kind of trade capital, I'm not saying trade anybody. I'm just saying if you were to trade somebody, you know, I don't know like what the dead money looks like or anything like that, but it's almost Christian Kirk is the higher demand right now, right? Like I get Gabe Davis is younger. Gabe Davis has more of an upside, but coming off of last season, what is there really like?
Right.
Nothing. No, you're not getting Gabe. I mean, Gabe Davis doesn't have a lot of value. And by the way, Gabe Davis actually has in 2025, guys, tremendous value to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know that sounds crazy. Like people are going to be like, Brent, what the hell did you just say? Right? He has tremendous value to the Jags. Like, what has he done? People are really down on Gabe Davis right now. They didn't even want him in the background of my Trevor picture that I tweeted him out yesterday during the news conference. Like, that's how down they are on Gabe Davis. But I'm telling you, I think he has tremendous value right now, guys, because I believe, if I have this right, I looked this up weeks ago now, I think he's $4 or $5 million on the cap hit this year. Like, that's nothing. Like, that's nothing for a guy that could have upside, that has a little bit of a resume. But I think you're right, Austen. Like, he doesn't have a lot of trade value for you because his resume isn't big. You probably overpaid for him to begin with. Like, everybody said you always overpaid for Kirk. Really, Gabe Davis might be the guy you overpaid for in this offseason, going to get him for $13 million a year. But my point is, it's not $13 million this year on the cap. I'm pretty sure it's like $5 million, which makes him pretty valuable, I think. The thing about Ingram is he's older. So have you seen the best of Ingram, with all due respect? Is it going to start to fall off a little bit? I think the Jags, listen, I'd love for them to keep all these guys. But I also think we should ask this question. And, Hamby, we're not going to go to break right now anyway. We're going to get to some more of this sound, and then we'll catch up on some breaks here in a bit. But, Austen, I think it's fair to ask this question.
Okay.
I believe there are good players on this team. I do. I like a lot of these guys. So I don't really, I have trouble saying, hey, I want to see this guy go or want to see this guy stay or whatever. But it's a 4-win team. Like, this offense really has struggled the last couple of years. Are we strictly putting that on Doug Peterson and Press Taylor? Are we strictly putting that on the coaching? Are we strictly putting that on the injuries? I mean, these guys have to have some ownership of some of that. And so even with Liam Coen, new scheme, new coach, new voices, new teaching. What does it say if this whole roster on offense is basically back in 2025 and you're kind of running it back on offense off a 4-win team that disappointed, quite frankly, the last couple of years when it comes to scoring points?
Yeah. To be honest, that's not a good look, right? Because at least back when I played, and I assume it's still the same way, you know that if you're coming off of a 3-win season, a 4-win season, or a 2-win season, that roster, like when you come back for OTAs, if you're lucky enough to make it, is going to be drastically different. And it has to be, right? Because, we can put everything on Doug Peterson and who's calling the plays and Ryan Nielsen on defense and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, to echo what Liam Coen said, players make plays. And how many players were making plays last year? Not too many. And there's a lot of mistakes. So I agree with you, Brent. What I would caution this team on doing, though, is, yes, you got to make some changes. You can't have the exact same roster again. You can't just run it back. But I don't want to see what happened with Calais Campbell happen with Evan Ingram. And that's my biggest worry. because when the Jaguars let Calais Campbell go, I get it. He may have been on the back nine of his career, and I say that in quotations because, well, he's still playing at a very high level. Kind of looks like he's still in the front nine. Kind of looks like he's still on the starting tee box, just getting his season started. So I'm not even going to say he's on his back nine anymore because the guy is unreal. I don't want to see that happen with Evan Ingram, right? I get it. You have a guy in Brenton Strange who looks like he could be the part going forward. You drafted him high for a reason. He can maybe be a reliable tight end going forward. That's fine. Evan Ingram was the guy that was first out there at practice every single day when he was healthy. He was the guy when it kind of hit the fan a little bit. It seemed like he kind of calmed everybody down. He was the first guy when Trevor Lawrence got hit. He went after somebody. That's the type of guy that I want on my team, because one of the biggest conversations we had, Brent, when the season was over was, do we have enough of those dogs? Do we have enough of those leaders on the team that can kind of show the way, especially for a new coach coming in? And I think we both agree that they don't. So my question is then, why would you get rid of one of the biggest guys with all that resume in Evan Ingram?
Yeah, that was my message. I got asked a little bit off like camera and stuff, and not for this was not just from like Liam. I don't want everything that's come from like Liam, but just talking to some of his camp a little bit, if you will, if I'll put it that way, or his team. And it's kind of like, man, this is better than a 4-win team. Like we were just talking a little bit about it. And I was like, yeah, but part of the problem is exactly what you just said. Like there was just something missing where you didn't have what we always say, throwing the Gatorade cooler across the locker room, and it kind of just nodded your head like, yeah, I kind of get that. Kind of watch, almost like watching from afar, you kind of get that a little bit. I don't know if that jumps out to everybody. I just think there is something to that. They have to find the mix, right? They have to find the mix. Do they coach the mix? There was really, I want to, where was it? DeRocco did it. They had some good quotes. Because what happened yesterday is there was their news conference, and then I think he went and did some radio, and then he did some other TV stations for a couple minutes, and then he sat down with us for like 10 or 12 minutes, and then he went to the writers. Okay, so that's kind of how this got put into play. So you're going to see different stuff, different quotes. And that's where like the Savages quote came from, if you saw that one. It came out of the writer's block. But also there was some good stuff about what he heard from the players, the feedback from the Josh Hines Allen, from the Trevor Lawrences of the world. And I'm just going to read you a little bit of it. And I think, unfortunately, when people get fired, I don't think they're trying to hate on Doug and the staff. I think they have a lot of respect for him. But I think some of the truth comes out in hindsight in some of the words that are said. And so this is what D-Rock has in his ESPN.com article. And this is all from Cohen. But it's his interpretation of some of the feedback that he got and some of the things that he wants to do. Like, you love this. He says, just that physical mindset. When our opponents turn on the tape, what are they looking at? Are they seeing guys playing through the echo of the whistle? You might get a flag or two early on. Man, hey, let's pull back a little. Okay, here we go. But I want them playing on the edge. Shoot, man, their quarterback basically got knocked out for the season, and we didn't see that. Like, wants to see that from snap one. Never mind when your quarterback's heads get taken off, which we're still mad about around here. Like, you've got to coach to that, not against that, right? Dan Campbell does a great job of that, and I think that's what it sounds like. It's a violent game. They have to be that way. I want them to play that way. So that's where it starts. If we can get that out of these guys, I think we'll be moving in the right direction. I would agree, by the way. It's his job to get it and instill that, but I like what he's saying. He sees that they were missing that. He said, I heard guys that are yearning for more. This is some of the feedback that he got from Trevor, Josh Hines Allen. Just more culture, more unity, more communication. Just everybody being on the same page. A true aligned vision, and for everybody to be able to tell each other some hard truths and ways and see each other's blind spots and communicate those. That's where the growth occurs. That's what it sounded like they are yearning for. Austin, I thought that was pretty loud, because one of the things that we have said so many times on this show, and we in a way joked, the favorite color of the Jacksonville Jaguars the last few years under Doug Peterson, in my opinion, and maybe even beyond that, has been the color gray. And what that quote tells me is that even the players saw some gray. And they don't want gray. You've been in locker rooms. You want to know the way they want to do it. You want to know the standard. You want to be coached hard. You want to be pushed to get the best out of your abilities. And again, this is not ripping Doug. Doug knows how to do it. I think Doug's a fine coach. I just think somewhere along the way that got lost in 23 and 24. And I think that's the way why it didn't work out. These guys want more of that. I thought that was a pretty loud statement.
Yeah, it was an extremely loud statement. And, once again, going back to what I feel like we echoed the entire season, it seemed like there was a disconnect between Doug Peterson and Ryan Nielsen. And I think some of those comments may reflect that a little bit. And that can't happen, right? And I think, when Liam Coen came in, one of the very first things he said, it's complementary football. It's all three phases. It's special teams, it's offense and defense, and they have to be playing together. You never got this sense, and I'm sure there's a couple games that I can't think of, but there was never really a complete game, it felt like, where everybody was on the same page, where everybody was playing at a very high level. Either the defense came out and did pretty well and the offense faltered, right? Or maybe the offense came out, put some points on the board, and the defense couldn't stop anything. Like that was the identity this year of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you can't have that. So, yeah, I think it speaks a lot. I think it speaks a lot of what we were talking about the entire year, where it seemed like Ryan Nielsen and Doug Peterson were on the same page. Offense and defense weren't working together. Just nobody was on the same page. And that comes down to communication. And I think that's first and foremost something that Liam Cohen's going to understand and is going to go out of his way to try to get that message across.
Well, and you said it. Hey, the reason why nobody's on the same page is when you have gray area, it's all left for interpretation, right? And so the same reason why I continue to say transparency and messaging, even the fans and us in the media, if you leave it all up for us to interpret, we're going to make our own stuff up. Right? Correct. You can share it and say it and tell it who you are, what you want to be, and then we can just hold you accountable if you're not being that. Like, that's man, they really missed the last few years on that. Like, Doug really missed in a lot of those categories, but it sounds like he even missed a little bit along the way with the players. I think they were all ears in 2022, and somewhere along that way, the message just wasn't said the same way. They weren't hearing it the same way, and we got what we got. And I think that's why we're here. So, I thought it was pretty cool for Liam Coen to express that, say that, articulate it, hear it from the players. Because what it also tells you, one more thing before we hit a break, Austin, is this team wants to be player-led. Like, to me, that is good leadership. This is where I think we need to be fixed. And this fixing isn't necessarily send us to vacation and on the beach. It's go kick our ass when it's time to be kicked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's finding that balance, and once again, that's the biggest thing that I'll be looking for with Liam Coen, right? I think a lot of people will be looking for this because he seems like he has the player's best interest in mind. And from a player's perspective, I think that press conference was an A+. Oh wow, he's going to listen to us. Oh wow, he's going to put us in positions to succeed. Eric Armstead doing backflips, can't believe it. Eric Armstead going to be an All-Pro next year, can't believe it. Like, that's what players want to hear. And there is that fine line, though, from a coach saying what you want to hear and then sometimes reiterating it with some hard work, some hard practices where maybe you're not really feeling up to it, but you have to do what you have to do, right? And that's the biggest thing that I'll be looking forward to see if Liam Coen can enforce that, right? Where, let's be honest, you won't win every single game year one, and there's going to be some adversity. That's what I'll be watching for. When this team faces adversity this up-and-coming year, how is Liam Coen going to respond to that? How is he going to, I say this all the time, but do you know how to lose? Do you know how to lose and then stop the losing and then turn it around? Or will it be more of the same where it's just going to snowball because nobody has the answers? I get from that press conference that Liam Coen, I think, is going to have the answers, but I'm going to need to see it to believe it.
Yeah, and I think that's being around the Bucs a little bit, who have turned themselves into a nice organization, and also being around the Rams, who we know are a good organization. So I think some of that comes from there. Can he bring those attributes here to Jacksonville? Let's do this. Take a time out. We'll come back, hear more from the press conference. I want to react to some of the other things that were said yesterday. We'll get to that part. We take you until 1 o'clock on the Brent Austen Show here on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Liam Coen, the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tony Baselli, he's going to be part of the front office in some capacity. We still don't know what that looks like, but this is a very good thing, in my opinion, for the Jags. I also think it's a very good thing. We know he's not necessarily going to be the EVP. I think there's some value to that as well. We'll continue to stay up on the latest on the Baselli and front office front.
It's one of the hot spots in the area. Welcome you to String Sports Brewery out at the beach. Big crowd on hand tonight. The fans are here. And now the newest hot spot at the beach is open. String Sports Brewery in Jacks Beach has opened its doors with rave reviews.
We're going to be fans forever.
Cozy up to the bar, grab a seat in the sports-themed restaurant, or grab a seat outside and feel that breeze coming off the beach as the weather warms. Just like the original location in Springfield, try the popular beer menu and come for lunch or dinner too, because the food is fantastic.
He's got some exciting news heading into 2025 as well. Christian Kirk.
It's where we hosted Jags Report Live in the football season, and the String Sports Brewery staff can't wait to host you.
Hey, welcome back here to String Sports Brewery. And if you haven't checked out the new location in Jacks Beach, which many of you have, you got to do it.
String Sports Brewery, now with 2 locations in Springfield and now open in Jacks Beach on Penman Road.
2024 provided plenty of memorable moments for the Jacksonville Armada on the pitch, including another conference championship game appearance for Tommy Krasanovich's under-23 men's team.
Listen in the dying moments.
Debuting this year for the first time, the girls in blue as the Armada fielded a women's under-23 side in the WPSL and made its presence known with some highlight moments.
Potential goal of the season.
Then attention turned to the future, with MLS Next teams representing the Armada badge in 3 age divisions this fall, including an under-19 squad ranking among the best in the state. Those teams are a big focus on Fleet and Footy, covering the big soccer stories each week on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
I'll put one in the back of the net for you.
Join us for player profiles, fun interviews, and the very latest on the Fleet and all things footy. That's every Thursday at 2 p.m.
You trust CGC to make your water great, and now you can trust CGC with your plumbing needs as well. Fast, convenient scheduling, licensed and insured. A quick call away at 904-552-1242.
You never know when you're going to have an issue with a shower, toilet, or maybe it's a sink that sometimes is easy to fix. All right, let's be honest. I'm not fixing anything. I'm totally staging this because when I have a plumbing problem, I call CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing.
Trained professionals, transparent pricing, customer satisfaction. Small problem or even a bigger issue. Right now, save 10% off a new Rinnai tankless water heater. The experts with 25 years of experience at CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing can do it all. Call 904-552-1242 or visit cgcwater.com. For a limited time, CGC is waiving the trip charge on all related plumbing calls. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer. Florida license number CFC 1432579.
Here on Spring Sports Media Day on Action Sports Jack.
It's an opportunity, an education beyond the classroom and the sports arena. Life skills, testing skills, social skills. It's called High School 912, a program focused on maximizing the growth of students in academics, sports, and life. And here's your chance to get involved. If you're a local business, or if you just want to make a donation to help support programs like ACT and SAT boot camps, career days, Leadership Academy, Financial Literacy Academy, and so much more.
Another Nice High School Panther, Jack Cohen.
High School 912 supports and hosts high school sporting events and several media days throughout the year. For more information on how you can get involved, visit jackshighschool912.com.
Baker Sports is local sports. Uniforms from Pop Warner and Little League to travel ball, high school, and college. They make you look good. They help you play good. Baker Sports has been helping families make memories that will last a lifetime with their Baker's Buckets. We've got a lot of these filled with baseballs and softballs in the garage. I've been throwing batting practice to Ty and Kaylee for years, and also sit on the Baker's Bucket, catching Kaylee while she practices her pitching. Yeah! Baker Sports is homegrown, and a lot of employees that used to play on local ball fields now work for Baker Sports, now helping you look good, play good, and make memories of your own. Visit Bakersport.com to see what Baker Sports can do for you. Custom apparel, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, embroidery, screen printing, and more. Baker Sports is local sports from Jacksonville to anywhere in the Southeast. Bakersport.com.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
Well, Liam Coen introduced, Shad Khan did the introducing, and I guess it's a news conference that I thought actually went really well around here. But meanwhile, the rest of the country is taking some of the bits and pieces of it and poking some fun. I just got a text, McVey Show making fun of Liam Coen's news conference. So I think that is a little bit of a thing today. But we also will remind everybody the last couple of times people thought a guy lost a news conference, which it did look like. Sirianni's looked like a mess. Campbell's maybe not as much of a mess, but still kind of looked like he lost it. Those teams have done pretty well. So there's a track record here. We've got a couple of things in our favor now, Austen Lane. You get between that, maybe if people think you lost the news conference from the outside looking in, it's worked out well for those teams. And when you reverse course, like a Bill Belichick did back in the day, that seemed to work out well for the New England Patriots. So if we're going to get looped in with all that stuff, maybe there's a trend here that says, oh, the Jags might be on the verge of finding something finally.
No, for sure. Brent, let me ask you, though, man, did the Guinness Book of World Records reach out to you when you shook Liam Coen's hand? Because it may have been the longest handshake ever recorded on camera. I pegged it at, what, 37 seconds for a handshake?
You know, it's so funny.
Just a holding it. I can't the camera. There we go. Yeah.
I knew it was coming. See, Hamby doesn't know this, but there was, like, I don't think about this kind of stuff, but Austin does, and Casey did back in the day. And so I actually had some guy on that video. See, at first I knew Liv was recording, but I think she ended up getting that. I knew she was recording the walk, and then I wasn't even thinking like that was even on video. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, hey, we're about to do the interview, all this stuff. And so I didn't get that was even going to be a reaction because John Dever, the PR guy, that what they were talking about is a little bit the honeymoon. I overheard them talking like Italy and they even mentioned Rhode Island, like he was going to go back to Rhode Island this summer. And John was like, oh, here's a Rhode Island guy. Like that's what he said. That was the first time I had actually been introduced to Liam. And so then there's that whole exchange. So, yeah, I have no idea what happened with the handshake thing. It was a long handshake, though. I will say that.
Here we go. Look at okay, 1001, 2, 3. I mean, there's a shot clock violation. It's a shot clock violation right there.
That is kind of long. I will say that's long. I didn't get you guys making fun of my one with Trevor back on the draft coverage. I think it was Trevor, right? But I was like, yeah. I knew I saw a response on Twitter and somebody was killing me for the handshake. And I was like, oh man, if there's something wrong with this handshake, I know Austin's bringing it up tomorrow.
We got a stray finger there from Cohen too. The index finger.
Hey, be honest though, man. I'm not mad at Brent Martineau. People want to say, oh, it's like Brent Martineau's new best friend. I don't think so. What I saw from Brent Martineau right there, he's establishing dominance day one. Right? Not letting go of that handshake. Got that kung fu grip right there saying, hey, Liam, I hope it goes well for you. You know, we're both from Rhode Island. But the minute that the play calling is questioned, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there asking the hard questions, all right? And Doug Peterson couldn't handle it. Let's see if you can handle it. That was Brent Martineau establishing dominance. And shout out to Liam Coen. You know, maybe a little bit of a weak Duval, but Liam Coen wasn't backing down either. Two alphas going at it right now, going at the bone in terms of that handshake. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I knew it was coming up. I just knew it. You know what? I honestly, when I saw the first comment about it, and I think there were 2 comments I think I saw, and it might have been many more. And when I saw it, I was like, are they talking about the actual handshake and then I was like, oh, they're going to get on the length of that thing because I kind of saw it back. I was like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Yeah. Oh, man, just funny. You're always being judged, people. And that's the thing. You know what strikes me so much about kind of what we do for a living sometimes? And it's really hit me this year. Because of all the stuff with Doug, like the interactions. And it's really hit me even more so, and I knew this already, but just how big the league is and the microscope on the league, that I really thought overall Liam Coen hit a lot of things that needed to be said in that news conference. And all anybody will talk about is that damn Duval. It's amazing to me. That's all they'll talk about. It's like, and even people come in talking about the question of Shad and that interaction. It's just amazing what people latch on to. And I'm not surprised by it, but you're reminded of it. And again, I said it the other day. This thing matters, meaning this microphone matters so much when you're in the NFL. It doesn't matter as much in other sports because there's not as big a microscope on that sport as there is in the NFL right now in everything that you say.
No, without a doubt. And people don't like the cliche stuff. Like Liam Coen could have came in there and verbatim, had the best press conference ever. We're going to turn things around. We're going to win. This is Duval and everything. But people will only gravitate towards, I don't want to say the unsettling, but just things that are going to get clicks, right? Things that people could call maybe a little awkward. And then that's the way that it goes on social media. And that's just the way that it is. I guarantee you people that are making fun of Liam Coen for saying Duval didn't even watch half, if not even a quarter of that press conference.
Yeah.
All they have to go off of is one little soundbite. So do we really care about their opinions? We probably shouldn't, but that's just the world that we live in.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I want to get to more sound, okay, and react to some of this. Hamby, you're going to be in charge of this. I'll give you a minute to get it up. He was asked about the coaching tree, and I'm pretty sure where the coaching tree comes in. I wrestled with this being my favorite line of the news conference. Not line, like gotcha line, but actually substance. Earlier I said, Austin, we picked out our favorite soundbite, and it was probably the one at the end where he paints the picture of the offensive huddle being, coming out of the huddle and saying, hey, that's the first thing the defense sees because, hey, man, you need some toughness. Like he hit that. Like that was a great visualization. But this one was really close for me. So here's what he has to say about the coaching tree. It's not necessarily, I think, about the coaching tree. What hits my ears, though, take a listen.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it starts off with him. My dad right here, in terms of the mindset, he was a play caller. He was an offensive, designer, and he always instilled the players over plays mentality. And then you go to Brown with Phil Estes, to UMass with Mark Whipple, and then continue to go. And then, I think getting to the Rams and with Sean, that was where I learned truly the game, I think, in a lot of ways, right? Got my, if you will, PhD in coaching and learned at a different level. To be around him, the Kevin O'Connells, the Zach Taylors, those guys, the Matt LaFleurs, to be around them, to see how they operated, this is the way I would like to do things. You're always going to have your own twist on it. But I'm proud to say I'm in the Sean McVey tree.
Damn it, I thought there was more to that. That wasn't the one that I was thinking. But it still says a lot because I actually think there's a lot of significance to the McVey tree, Austin. I think the fact that he just mentioned those guys, O'Connell, Zach Taylor, McVey himself, that's where he got his PhD. Like, that's where his knowledge took a new level. That has worked. We've said it. It's worked. Can it work this time? I hope the Jags aren't late to the game on the McVey tree, but I don't feel like they are with this guy. I think there's a lot of confidence I have watching McVey coach these last couple of years, try to rebuild this thing with not as good a roster as they once built by accumulating all these great players and watching what he's done. I think this is a great recipe of what he learned, that he could bring a lot of these different things here to Jacksonville.
No, listen, you're not wrong, Brent. And that's what the landscape is. It's about where you come from. And when you can mention Sean McVey and yourself in the same sentence, that carries a lot of weight. That carries a lot of water because, like it or not, Sean McVey is still the hottest name, I feel like, in terms of like, oh, this guy was in Sean McVey. Yeah, let's give him an opportunity, right? Because you see the success that he's had. You know, what we talk about a Bill Belichick coaching tree and what that meant. I mean, long ago, it could have carried some weight, but now it's like, you know, how much success have you really had? And Andy Reid, you know, there's a lot of success there as well. So I think it's with anything in life, you know, it's about who you know and where you come from. And I think Liam Coen comes from a pretty solid tree. I mean, it's just like, you know, if I ever do like an interview with somebody else or, you know, another job interview, I want to go someplace else and they ask, you know, like, who did I come up under? Who did I work with? I mean, obviously the first name I'm going to mention is Paul Feinbaum, because Paul Feinbaum had me on his show one time, and that was huge, you know? So, Brent, you all right?
Yeah, I was just expecting a little bit more.
Oh, no, man. You know it's Paul Feinbaum and then everybody else. Come on now. Come
Your guy. That's your guy.
Get off your high horse real quick. You went on the SEC network. We on ESPN. Hey, Action Sports Jack's app is fantastic, but you ain't Paul Feinbaum, man.
That's awesome.
No, I'm just kidding, man.
I'm not killing Feinbaum again today. All right. Hey, Hamby, I don't know if we have this part, and it's okay if we don't. But I thought there were so many different sound bites. I thought this was wrapped up in that one. And he was asked about, like, how do you change the franchise into a winning culture? And we might not have pulled that one, Hamby, but I'll just read this because I thought this was really profound, Austen. He says, he gives his whole answer, like, starts with communication, starts with alignment, right? All these things that I think we have hit on a bunch. Now with the front office, how do we continue to build there, get this thing fully in alignment there? What's the vision? What's the goal? Like, I love all that stuff. Okay, and then, so I'll play it now because you're going to get to this one part and listen to when he starts talking or what he says about a building in general. And I think that was so huge. Here he is.
It starts with communication. It starts with the alignment and communication at every level, right? Building, first and foremost, the best staff that we can build. Because it's like I mentioned, it's about these guys. So how do we put the best coaches in place to help these players reach their full abilities? Okay, now with the front office, how do we continue to build there and get this thing fully in alignment so that then when we go into the off-season program, we're all on the same page. We all understand the vision and the goal. When I walked into the Los Angeles Rams building in 2018, I had never felt anything like that before in my life. It was a different introduction to coaching. And you saw a building, every single person that was in that building and a part of that thing was in alignment. And I think that's the key.
Hallelujah. Yes. There it is. Like, maybe that is my favorite part. That quote right there, that's what it is. That's what we've been missing. That's what it is. That's why Shad, when you listen to that soundbite, that's why you had to get rid of Trent Baalke. Like, that's why you don't have, like, forget about all the stuff people say about Baalke. It's not as bad as everybody says, but it's not aligned. It's not on all the same page. We don't have the same vision. You can't just mix and match. This isn't a game of Jenga and just stick somebody in a certain spot. Like, you've got to have the vision. You've got to be able to answer who are the Jacksonville Jaguars. He said it. This dude had come from Rhode Island, Brown, UMass, Maine, and he went across the country to L.A. in 2018. He stepped in the building. He said, I never felt anything like it. Mm-hmm. We can walk into the building in Jacksonville, and you don't say that. You don't.
Guess what? They went to the Super Bowl that year.
And they did. And listen, it doesn't mean you go automatically. But I guarantee you, if you walked into Detroit's building 6 years ago and you walk into Detroit now, you feel it. I've been in the Baltimore building. You feel it. I've been in the Pittsburgh building. You feel it. I've walked in the halls of the Patriots building. You feel it. Like, that's what he's talking about. And you should be able to feel it. When you get on the field with the Jacksonville Jaguars at Everbank Stadium and you get dropped off in the bus and you walk in the locker room and you go out for warm-ups, you should know what you're about to expect today. You don't always get that in Jacksonville, and you have to find that. What is that? He has got to do it, but he said it, man. Like, I thought that was money. That was money what he said there.
No, and Brent, I said the exact same thing when I went from, a 2-win team in Jacksonville to a 2-win team in Kansas City the previous year. And I remember just sitting at the locker thinking, like, I don't know how this team only won 2 games, makes zero sense to me, but like, this just feels different than what I'm coming from in Jacksonville. And lo and behold, it rang true. And yeah, it wasn't because the facilities were crap. They still kind of are crap, I feel like, in Kansas City. It was because of the players and everything. By the way, do they shut down the no electric thing and just like have like a bunch of like crates, like shipping crates, and that's the locker room? Because Kansas City is getting ready to win 3 Super Bowls in a row, and they might have the worst facilities of any team, Brent. there might be some kind of correlation there. I said we start going down to the shipyards, bring in some shipping containers, and congratulations, everybody. That's your locker room now.
It is pretty wild. Well, guess what? The Jags are going to have to go through some of that stuff, right? They are going to have some of the uncomfortable parts of this. Maybe not this year, but over the next couple of years. And we did ask Liam Coen about that. I mean, I think it's a bigger part of this whole picture, but you had to have somebody that was going to embrace it. I give Doug Peterson a lot of credit. When they built the Miller Electric Center, he had to go to Episcopal to practice each and every day. He did not complain about it. They embraced it. He was the first coach that had to go 2 games in London, 10 days in London. You could view that as a competitive disadvantage. He embraced it. In fact, they rallied the team on a couple of occasions because they almost had to in those situations. You have to be able to embrace the nuance and differences that is this right now all the way in through 2028. I think we'll be a normal franchise by 2028. There'll be a new stadium. You won't have to worry about all these things. You might go to London once a year, but everybody will still be going to London all over the world anyway by then, once a year. So it will feel normal in 28, but the road to get there is not a short time. Liam Coen has to be able to deal with that. The logistics, getting his players to play, getting players that make a ton of money and are used to getting everything they want, being uncomfortable. They have to accept that. He talked about all the challenges of the next few years on Monday.
I've actually looked at that as an exciting part of this, honestly. My wife, been in the military, born in the Philippines, moved all over her childhood. I've moved around a lot throughout this process and throughout my career here. So we're kind of used to that, honestly. We embrace that. And to try to bring home wins to Jacksonville, that is important, to protect our home turf. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little complicated over the next few years. But if we don't embrace that, then we have no shot, right? If we can go start to build something that people are really proud of over these next 2 years, in year 3, wherever we're playing, we want people to come. And then to go into this next one that we're coming into, I mean, sky's the limit. So that's something that we're excited about.
Well, here's the other thing about that, Austen. I don't think we have to belabor this point, but this was unsolicited. And again, man, this dude has been paying attention, or somebody slipped him some good notes, because he's the one that threw in there, we've got to win on the home turf.
Yeah.
This is a team that is 4-10, I think, is the record in Jacksonville, in the 904, at Everbank Stadium the last 2 years. I think it's 4-10. That is unacceptable, and he acknowledged it.
Yeah, I think this comes more from meeting with the players and kind of getting their opinions about it a little bit because, listen, players take note of this kind of stuff, Brent, right? And especially if you're getting beat and your home fans are leaving and all of a sudden the away fans are doing the other chant and everything, like, as a player, you hear all that, and that can affect you. It's frustrating, right? Like, if you're playing at home, you want the support of the crowd, you want the support of just being in a comfortable setting. And when you don't get that, and when you start losing and no one shows up and the away team's kind of taking over, yeah, that's going to be a talking point. So I think that kind of comes down to more of whether it's Josh Hines out, whether it's Trevor Lawrence kind of speaking their concerns and saying, hey, we got to start winning at home. We got to start getting that home field advantage because we've had too many losses here where it feels like we're at an away game because, well, no one wants to come support a loser. And you know what? That's probably rightfully so.
Hey, I'm going to scoot here in a little bit, and I can't wait to get your reaction. I want you to talk a little bit more about this, how big a hire this defensive coordinator job is. And the Jags have now interviewed 4 different people that they've confirmed. And so Hamby will update us on the names coming up after this break. Might even play a little bit more sound from yesterday and your thoughts on the defensive coordinator job, because it becomes a massive play for Cohen to get this right. Again, I think any one of these guys can be instantly better, but how good can they make this defense? It does have some parts, needs a little bit more, but they also need to be schemed right, coached right, put in the right positions. We'll give you an update on the latest interviews for the defensive coordinator when we come back. Brent Austen Show on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
There's a saying in sports, you can't win them all, but you can win a lot with good folks on your team. Like that one painter, First Coast. It's tough to beat the sun in Florida, so your home fades. It's tough to beat that HOA when they come calling. Beat the sun, beat the HOA with that one painter, First Coast. And it's a good time to do it. less rain to work around, and painting in mild temperatures is perfect. After all, the paint bonds to the surface so much better. Give That One Painter First Coast a call at 904-417-3557 or look them up at first-coast.thatonepainter.com. Fast estimate, guidance on color and HOA requirements, and the highest quality job you'll find anywhere. Be a big winner in your neighborhood with That One Painter First Coast on your team.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers! And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
Burgers or breakfast, you can get it all at Whataburger. Try something new on the menu or an all-time favorite like the Whataburger Patty Melt.
And now you can have breakfast here at Whataburger 12 hours a day, 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. Menu items like the bacon taquito, sausage taquito, honey butter chicken biscuit. Whether you work the late night shift, just want a snack early in the morning to get your day started, or a little pick-me-up late in the morning, 12 hours a day, breakfast served, 11 p.m. until 11 a.m.
A dozen locations in Jacksonville. You can order pickup or delivery and download the Whataburger app. New rewards members get free Whataburger items when placing their first online order. Just download the app. And for us coffee drinkers, Whataburger has all new hot coffee and iced coffee too. Satisfy that coffee craving at Whataburger 24/7, and it comes in a variety of flavors. Burgers, breakfast, coffee, and so much more. Whataburger, just like you like it.
For the game day hustle and every day in between. Juggling my show, Jag Social, to going under the Friday night lights and a social life, it's a daily tournament. But this ride, MVP status. The all-new 2024 Lincoln Nautilus isn't just my car, it's my personal locker room, office on the go, and VIP lounge on wheels. Let's talk tech. My profile remembers everything from customizing my dash display to setting the ambient lighting and my signature scent. And wireless charging, essential for live tweeting scores. Whether I'm packing for a beach day with friends or heading to the gym, there's space for every passion. After dominating all day, this becomes my recovery zone. The massage feature is like having a personal PT on call. Life's a non-stop game, but with this ride, I'm always on my A game. The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. Drive your passion.
If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
Welcome back to the Brent Austen Show, and the Jags continue their defensive coordinator search. Liam Coen interviewing a couple of candidates today. The first one just came in a couple of minutes ago, according to the Jags social media page. That's Anthony Campanile, I believe is how you say his last name, is the current passing game coordinator with the Green Bay Packers. And as we bring it back in here, Austen, second one they've done today. They interviewed Aubrey Pleasant earlier this morning. He is the defensive passing game coordinator and assistant head coach with the Rams. So we've got a couple of guys here. Obviously, Patrick Graham is the guy that they've interviewed the most. Okay, but everybody else are new names for us, at least, guys that we probably are hearing of for the first time. Nobody's been a defensive coordinator before. So before we break down a couple of these guys' resumes, does it mean
Graham has? I mean,
other than Graham, the guys that we've interviewed since
I'm
Graham.
sorry. Okay, I didn't hear that part. Sorry.
All good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So what does it mean anything to you that we have a first-time head coach in Liam Coen? Is there an advantage of having a defensive coordinator who's been a DC before? Because all these guys are just passing game coordinator, assistant head coach, linebackers coach, etc. Is there anything to that, being that we need a guy potentially that's done it before so Cohen can focus on the offensive side of the football?
Yeah, Jason, it's a great point, man. I think there really is. I think if you look at successful teams in this league, like for instance, you take a look at Philadelphia, where you brought in Sirianni, kind of a newer guy, right, new in the head coaching role. Well, who eventually becomes your defensive coordinator? Vic Fangio, a guy that I played with in Chicago, a guy who's really been everywhere, had a head coaching stint in Denver that didn't really work out. But in terms of calling a defense, one of the best that there is to do it. And he's definitely that old school type of guy. So I think if you look at what the Jaguars have to offer right now, you have a situation with a new head coach, a first-year head coach, a young head coach, and an offensive-minded head coach. I think the best thing to do would be couple that then with a more experienced defensive coordinator, and I think Graham would probably be like the prize get. And the reason why I like Graham, and it's funny because I feel like the reason, and I'm going to be careful how I say this here, but the reason why I like Graham was the same reason why I thought I liked Ryan Nielsen. But I think Graham can back it up a little more. And let me prove the point by saying this. Hamby, we can't really name a lot of players in that Raiders defense, right? Like, we don't really follow them that much.
I got two for you. Max Crosby and Chase on.
Okay. Who's the best player on that defense? Who's the best player probably on that team right now, Hamby?
Max Crosby, easily.
Absolutely, hands down, right? Agreed. Well, if you know anything about Graham's defense, he's always been a guy that comes from a 3-4 philosophy, comes from a 3-4 coaching tree. He took a look at Max Crosby and said, well, I want to run a 4-3, but this dude's built for the 4-3. This dude's built to have his hand in the dirt, be on the outside, and cause chaos. So what does Graham do? He goes, you know what? Yeah, I've been taught a certain way. I've done things a certain way. I have my own philosophies, my own beliefs, but I'm going to cater to my player, and I'm going to put them in the best position to win. And I think him having more of a 4-3 scheme this past season because of Max Crosby shows all you need to know in terms of this is a coach that not only says they puts players in the best position, but can back it up. Yeah, it's one thing if you're Ryan Nielsen and said, hey, we're going to set our players up for success. And then it's another thing if you have Eric Armstead playing defensive end for no reason, right? So I think coaches love to do the whole coach speak sometimes, but I look at guys who could actually back it up with their philosophies, who can back it up with their scheme. And if you look at Graham, the way he's, had things in Las Vegas with Max Crosby and that 4-3, he's definitely backed it up.
Yeah. I think, look, what I'm curious about is, because obviously to become a defensive coordinator, you got to be a position coach first, right? And as we take a look at the three guys that they've interviewed, Austen, other way, not a baby.
Yep. Thank you. Sorry, man. Sorry. Yep.
All good. Since then are these three guys. So we got Aubrey Pleasant was earlier this morning. Anthony Campanile was just a minute ago. And then Durante Jones was, I believe, yesterday. So we have Durante Jones is a defensive pass game coordinator and DB coach. He's with the Vikings, or at least was. most likely will still be there. Then Aubrey Pleasant, pass game coordinator, same, and assistant head coach with the Rams. And then Campanile was run game coordinator and linebackers coach. To you, is there how many different defensive coordinators did you play under?
Oh man. It's a great question. So I want to say 5 or 6, because we had Tucker, and then we had Babich, played with Fangio. Actually, no, I take that back, because Tucker was around for Malarkey, and he was around, I think he's from Malarkey. And so I think I've had like 4 or 5 to answer the question.
I'm curious which position coach make the best DCs in your opinion. Obviously, you could probably run the stats, and there's a bunch of successful ones that come from all different positions. But in your mind,
great question, Hamby,
specifically for this Jags team, which position, DB coach, linebackers coach, D-line coach, would make the best coordinator?
So it's funny you say that, because I feel like the coaches that I really had the respect for, that I thought kind of had the good combination of X and O's, but also just kind of like that mentality where, hey, it's defense, like let's put our chin straps on, let's go to work, gentlemen, seemed to come more from the linebacking spot.
Okay.
Seemed to come more from linebacking coaches. And I don't think that's by mistake, right? Because you look at defensive line, like look at any defensive line coach. They're all psychos.
Right.
Okay. Psychos. They're the ones that are, if you're at practice, they're the ones that are cussing you out. They're the ones that are like, oh, grab the kids, put the earmuffs on. Like, that's just how you're wired, because on the defensive line, like, that's where the game's won and lost, Hamby, right? And they say it all the time. You got to be a little crazy to play in the trenches, right? So your coach has to kind of reflect that a little bit. So I always felt like defensive line coaches were a little more of just like the boisterous, get in your face. I always kind of felt like the secondary coaches were a little more, I don't want to say more of the offensive coordinator kind of style, but a little more of just like, smooth, just kind of let players make their plays, things like that. And then I always felt like the linebackers were more of the balance, right? Because they're like the captains of the team almost. They're kind of like the generals of the team. So you have to have that combination of being boisterous, of having that, take no prisoners mentality. But you also have to have that mentality where it's like, okay, let's lock in here. Let's dial in. Let's be more analytical, because I got to call it the blitzes. I got to call it the coverages. So I would say linebackers.
All right. I'll have one more for you before we get out of here. When you look at this Jags team, obviously 32nd in league in a lot of categories. So if you are, if you're Liam Coen and you say, look, this one position group needs the most attention, and we need the most improvement out of it, which would it be? Not individual players, right? But the D-line as a whole, linebackers as a whole, or secondary as a whole, where are you going?
I mean, you can go a lot of places, can't you? That's a great question, Hamby. I almost feel like Liam Coen now. That's a great question. You know what? If I'm being honest, and I want to get your opinion here too, but you know me, man. I'm old school. I think the game's won and lost in the trenches, and I think the lifeblood of your team starts from the interior. So, like, I'll say the defensive line as a whole unit. Not to say like Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker haven't done their jobs. They played at a pretty high level. But if you're trying to get over the hump, and if you're trying to be a legit defense, you got to have that interior as well. You got to be able to stop the run. You got to be able to enforce your will. And I felt like any time that a team played the Jacksonville Jaguars, they weren't really feeling that from the interior. So I'm going to say defensive line. What do you got?
I think I'm going to go. I mean, look, you think about what Cohen said yesterday. He said you can't playoff football is won in the trenches. It starts with running the football and stopping the run. And I look at the teams that I've watched play so far in the playoffs. The Chiefs secondary, they got McDuffie, but they've been banged up. They got Chris Jones and they got Karlaftis, and they've been strong up there. The Bills they've been banged up, and even had Benford got injured in that game. Well, they've got Ed Oliver.
Look at
who was
the
strong.
Eagles, man, are a prime example of
the Eagles are the best example.
Young secondary, but a bunch of, and maybe a young defensive line overall, but beasts in the middle with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter.
100%. And Nolan Smith on the outside, 3 dogs, obviously. So, hey, by the way, whoever your GM, you go get Liam Coen, just tell him to draft dogs on the defensive line, and we might be all right. But anyway.
Hey, it wasn't a bad idea, man.
Bro, that's literally what the Eagles did. And they have Nakobe Dean, who just got hurt as a linebacker, but he was the same exact team, the championship team, and Lewis Seen, the safety they just brought in. But anyway, I think it's exactly right. That's why, again, I'm gonna keep saying it. Mason Graham is the guy for me in the draft at number 5 for Michigan because you got nothing from that position, interior D line last year. And if you think that you can move Eric Armstead inside, well then okay, perfect. You got at least a vet who can oversee that, along with Mason Smith, who really don't know what to make from that last year, but at the same time you saw flashes, and he's as young as it gets as far as reps goes. That was the book out of him from college. He barely played in LSU. So you set them two with Armstead, and you say, all right, well, here are our dudes that go along with Trayvon and Josh Allen, and maybe this can become actually one of our strong suits and not just something that we hope gets by because teams are focused on Trayvon and Josh Allen.
I mean, Hamby, it's not a bad point. And listen, I think if you're going to model a defense right now in this NFL, I'm going to model it after the Philadelphia Eagles and what they've done. And I think what you look at what they've done, they had a lot of key pieces for a long time on that team, whether it was Fletcher Cox, whether it was Brandon Graham. Like, those guys have been in the system for a very long time in Philly. They know what it means to be an Eagle, and obviously they're captains because of it. Well, then what do? You bring on the new guard. You bring on all these cats from Georgia. I shouldn't say cats. You bring on all these dogs from Georgia, and it's a great combination. So then you mix, and I think Fletcher Cox is done now, yeah? Like, did he – I know he's still on the team.
Because he was dapping up Ertz after the game in street clothes.
Yeah. But, like, so you bring in these younger guys to work with these old veterans that have been there forever, and that's the right combination. You have Josh Hines-Allen, who's now a veteran. You have Trayvon Walker, who's getting closer and closer to being a veteran and knows what it means to be a Jaguar, and hopefully you can retain him. And you got Eric Armstead, who's been around the league for a while, where I think if he plays on the inside, could show something. Now let's get some younger guys in there. And I get it. You drafted those guys last year a little bit with Mason Smith and everybody, but, like, Can they step up their play, or do you need to go back in the draft and get some more guys? Whatever the case may be, having a great defense, it starts on the defensive line, and it's about mixing the old guard with the new.
Well, that's it. And that'll do it for us today.
That's it, man.
That'll do it for us today on the Brent Austen Show. Obviously, you heard a lot from Liam Coen in his press conference yesterday. You're going to hear a lot more of that on Action Sports Jacks later tonight. Brent's one-on-one with Liam Coen. You'll be seeing that again, and you can watch that whenever you want to. Just go to actionsportsjacks.com, or it'll be on our podcast.
Brent's Handshake with Liam Coen. Gonna watch that as well.
That's up there
just
too.
Make sure you have enough memory in that phone, because it's a long one.
Let me see. Actually, I can't think of a better way for us to get out of here than we take one more.
Let's get out of here, man. Let's get out of here on point.
Austin, I'll let you take us out.
All right. Hey, Liam, nice to meet you, man. Brent, nice to meet you. Wait, I'm not letting go. I'm not letting go either. I'm hanging on to you, man. I got you, dog. That's what I'm saying. Zach, I'll never let go. Have a great day, everybody.
There's a saying in sports. You can't win them all, but you can win a lot with good folks on your team. Like that one painter, First Coast. It's tough to beat the sun in Florida, so your home fades. It's tough to beat that HOA when they come calling. Beat the sun, beat the HOA with that one painter, First Coast. And it's a good time to do it. Less rain to work around, and painting in mild temperatures is perfect. After all, the paint bonds to the surface so much better. Give that one painter, First Coast, a call at 904-417-3557. Or look them up at first-coast.thatonepainter.com. Fast estimate, guidance on color and HOA requirements, and the highest quality job you'll find anywhere. Be a big winner in your neighborhood with that one painter, First Coast, on your team.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our